All right, so welcome everyone. Today we're going to do modules 9 and 10. We're going to talk about some of the essentials, agreements, and some of the important points that you want to make sure find their way into any of the agreements that you're doing as you put a project together, film or television project. First, this morning I did all the grading of all the assignments I have from you. So if any of you have done an assignment and you do not see a grade, or you have done a quiz and you do not see a grade, please email me so I can check on this. We've been having issues with Canvas over the last, I would say like week or two. So, I had a situation, I don't know who it was, I think it was Josephine or someone sent me an assignment and I couldn't really see it. I saw that she submitted it, but when I opened the file, there was some weird gibberish, so I couldn't really see anything. And I did send messages to some of you where I had a similar situation. So just look at your submission board, like the dashboard there. And if you see a message from me saying that I couldn't open your file, just email it to me. And if you can't email it through Canvas, just email it to the milio@ucla.edu email. So for any of you who haven't done our whatever quizzes, assignments, and so forth that we're due so far, I think it's now the time to kind of catch up with all that and start getting me all the things that you haven't gotten me so far. I need to start kind of grading what we have before we get into the final. In 2 weeks, the final is going to come up. So by that time, I would need everything in my inbox so I can have all the assignments that you want me to grade. And if you don't want me to grade it, just send me an email saying, I don't care, you don't need to grade me, and then I'm not going to grade it, and that's okay too. But if you do want me to give you a grade, just make sure that I have everything before you do the final. That was kind of a little bit of housekeeping. You all did pretty good on the last quizzes and the assignments. We did have one issue with assignment 8 where one of the profit shares was shown incorrectly. It was from an old case study that was finding its way into this module and didn't match with the attempt sheet that I gave you. So I apologize for that. Sometimes wrong files are being uploaded, and sometimes that's because I click on the wrong file to upload it, or the Canvas team at UCLA, when they do the copying over to the next semester, sometimes they copy wrong files. But whoever had sent me a assignment 8 with the 75% producer share, don't worry about it, you still get the full points. I just want to make sure that I get something from you, and I'm going to see what it is, and if it is a different answer, I'm still going to give you the full points, so don't worry about that. All right. Do we have any questions about anything that happened over the last 2 weeks in the materials? And thank you for Maritea for sending me the stuff on the updated Puerto Rico items. I'm going to update that. Thank you for that. So if you guys don't have any questions, I'm going to start screen sharing. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jeanette. I do have one quick question. I was just looking at the at your feedback on my module 8 assignment, and the notes. Yeah. Take a look at the attached and let me know if you have any questions. And I can't find your notes on the attached. Where do you generally?
I would usually basically send you the assignment as an attachment. There was no attachment with the submission, with the note, no attachment. All right. So
I don't see one, but.
All right. So what I'm going to do, if that's great, I'm going to make a little note and I'm going to email it to you.
Okay.
So let me just make a little note here. That doesn't write. That's not helpful. Was assignment 8. All right. So when we're done here, I'm going to just email you that through Canvas.
Okay.
Same with me.
Huh?
Same thing with me.
Same thing?
I had the same situation, yeah.
What the heck is going on? I know I attached it. Okay, Sheila, I'm going to send it to you too. Anyone else did get something from me that says, look at this, and then there wasn't anything? What the hell? Well, if you do, as you go through all that stuff, please just email me so I can send you what is supposed to have been attached to my submission comment. Jesus, I don't know what's going on. Okay. If everyone's ready, I'm going to start sharing my screen now. Let's hope this works. Screen one. Is it working?
Success.
Yeah. Are we seeing a, I'm not seeing.
Yes,
Yeah,
we're seeing
okay,
it.
you guys, okay, perfect. Let me just see if I can make you bigger. Make it bigger so I can see if anyone, all right, perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna go through the modules 9 and 10, and I'll take a few breaks for questions. And then in the end, we're going to do the final prep case study together, okay? So we'll talk about the main essentials in relation to terms for production-related agreements. And we're going to talk about financial terms for any agreement that you do that has to do with financing, investor agreement, distribution agreements. We are also going to talk specifically about distribution terms. And we're also going to cover some of the co-production agreements. There are various kinds and what the differences are and what you what terms should find their way in them. And then we're going to do a little case study that should prepare you for a question that's going to be in the final. What I was planning on doing with the final, by the way, is I was planning on doing it together. So in 2 weeks, we would meet. And then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to all do the final. So we walk through it and you guys, you know, you have it in front of you. So I want you to know what we're looking at. And then you share what you think are the answers with me. And so that way we can also cover any final questions that you have as we go through the final together. So that's number one. So you don't have to do the final. I just want you to know what's in it. So you're a little prepared when we're going to do it together. And then regarding the projects that you're pitching, I'd like to do that after we're doing the final. So whoever wants to pitch the project or whatever group wants to pitch should send me a little email so I can allot a little time for that. I'm going to have Jim join me, my husband, because he always gives great feedback from his point of view. He's going to take the point of view of like a network executive, because he has dealt a lot with network execs and deals a lot with what they want, what they don't want, and the nonsense that comes out of their mouth sometimes. So he can share a little about that. And so you're going to get two different kind of feedbacks, you know, regarding the creative, the financial, and what a network executive or streaming executive would probably want to comment on. So that I want to do that after the final, so just for housekeeping that as well. So when you start with your project, you are looking at a few first steps. So you, in many cases, you're going to think about how am I going to put all this together? Am I going to hire a lawyer? Am I going to hire a consultant? What am I going to do? How am I going to even do this? I mean, you know a lot now because you've learned it, but putting it into reality and putting an agreement together may require, you know, for you to have a lawyer, for example. So when you do a deal with a lawyer, there are two versions of that. And I'm sure a lot of you have worked with lawyers. You can do a retainer agreement that says, I'm going to charge you per hour X, meaning the lawyer is going to charge you per hour X. Or you can do an agreement, which is what I usually do when it's project related. I give them a fee. I'm basically agreeing a fee with them that covers everything. I do this when I know that I'm at a point where I myself cannot handle the agreements on my own. A lot of the agreements that you're going to be dealing with are in the beginning not very complicated. And by the way, I can offer you, if you like, if you start putting stuff together, you can always send it to me. I'll take a little look. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, but I can at least give you some feedback from a producer's point of view to say, I would change this, I would add this, or think about that. I actually like doing that. I want to make sure that you at least get on the right track with your stuff and not having to pay someone $500 an hour to do all the detailed stuff. So feel free to, in the beginning, when you start putting your stuff together and do the first agreements, to just tell me about it, tell me where you're at, tell me who you're doing a deal with, and then I'm happy to give you feedback. So don't be shy on this. I think it is important to find a way to do an agreement where you can do an overall fee. Because it has happened to me that I've hired lawyers and it was on a retainer, And it ended up being a huge, huge, huge legal bill that I had to somehow figure out, put it into the budget so I can get it reimbursed. And in many cases, I couldn't get it reimbursed because the budget couldn't handle it. And then I pay it out of my fee and I basically do the movie for free. So it's not a good place to be, and I don't want you to get there. So when you start talking to lawyers, be very specific about what you want from them. For example, if you want to talk to a lawyer who does all the production deal memos, when I say production deal memos, I'm talking about crew deals, talent deals, anything related to anyone that works on the show as a crew, as talent, or as a service provider. Those deals can often be done either through the line producer, if it's an experienced line producer, through the payroll house. They can help you with that too. And they can also be done through a lower level lawyer that's more like a production lawyer. So those people are usually cheaper, and you can do a flat fee with them and saying, do all these deals, do the crew deals, the talent deals, and do the service deals. If you don't know how to do them, if you don't have the templates, they have templates for this because they're pretty much straightforward. So the second part of the equation is all your deals that you're doing with the distribution companies, your sales agent, your financing entities, the bank, for example, your investor, anyone you're doing a deal with that has to do with the financial component or the revenue component of your project. Those tend to sometimes be a little tricky, for lack of a better word, meaning you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. For that, you need a lawyer that is not a production lawyer. That's a different kind of lawyer. You need someone who has done this stuff. And even then you have to be really careful and make sure that they understand what they're doing. I have used many law firms and I've not always been perfectly represented. I finally found someone, as I mentioned before, and he is a litigator, so that helps. But again, with that person too, do have a conversation about a flat fee for this work. And just tell them, I need you to do distribution agreements, finance agreements, and I want you to look over the comma, and I want you to deal with the bank. These things are time consuming. The lawyer knows this. They should be able, however, to tell you what kind of flat fee they can offer you to do this. And worst case scenario, what you can tell them is, maybe we'll do a flat fee. And if it goes over a certain amount of time, we can talk about, I don't know, some kind of an hourly for everything else that comes after. But don't just agree to a retainer agreement with an hourly rate, because you have no control over what happens, and you can't really do that. And the lawyer needs to understand that. And if they don't, find another lawyer. With the consultants, I have seen many times that people work with consultants, and some of them are great, but whenever you work with someone who has no or very limited production experience, meaning they haven't really done much, you need to be a little careful. You also should be careful with anyone who tells you, I can do this, I can do that, I can get you this actor, I can get you this and the other. When they're too promising, there's usually a reason for that. It is Hollywood, so people talk a lot. So, use your intuition with these people, especially when they want a lot of money up front. It's one thing to work with you on a project and to consult with you where they say, okay, I need a little bit of money because I'm spending time. Okay, you talk about that though. And then you give them a fee in the budget in addition, which is a fee that only is payable if actually this thing is being funded. You need to be on the safe side because you don't know if you get to the final stretch of this. And if you have someone helping you with it, they need to understand that this is a baby that's being born, and they need to be okay with that. And if they're not okay with that, it's not the right person. You can't ask someone to do this entirely for free, but they also shouldn't be expensive. So if you are in a situation where you work with someone like that, you can also let me know and tell me how much they want to charge you. And I can ask around a little bit about that person and see who else has worked with them. The industry in the end of the day is pretty small, and word gets around, especially about people that do weird things. So don't be shy in that sense too, and just give me a call and say, here's what I'm trying to do. Here's the person that I was trying to talk to. And is this right or wrong, right? So just think about these things before you sign any deal with anyone that costs you any money up front.
Quick question.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a project consultant versus someone that is an associate producer or a co-exec producer, or are they kind of the same person in that sort of function where they're bringing in talent or providing access to funding or through their relationships and things like that?
It's in essence, thank you, William, great question. It's in essence the same thing. A consultant would be someone who helps you on the various different levels and would say to you, I'll help you with, doing your budget. I help you with structuring the deals with the vendors. I help you with, making calls or getting through the agents. I help you with finding the right customer. They might just have a whole list of things that they do. That is not just one thing, like an associate producer that would come to you that say, I want to be an associate producer on your project. And the way I think I can be beneficial is I can get you access to this actor or to this funder. So those kind of people are usually pretty specific, like an executive producer is usually, or a co-AP or an associate. They are usually specific in the scope of what they can do. They should be. Unless, if they're not, you need to define that scope in a conversation with them and saying, what is it that you want this credit for? What am I getting? And what am I paying you for? A consultant in this case is someone who helps you with pretty much everything. They help you with the business plan. They help you with your pitch deck. They help you with the numbers. They help you with all of it, which is why they need to have experience in all of these aspects. It's usually a bigger role. It could theoretically be something similar to an executive producer because that's what they do as well. But that person might just be someone who has not been an executive producer, but happens to just have great relationships with certain people, right? So you don't want to cast them away only because they have, not an executive producer role per se, or haven't gotten the credit. They still can have great relationships. It is obviously, however, if someone has no credits whatsoever and they say they can do all these things, obviously that's a bit weird. So you want to check on that too. But it is defined in a way that they will tell you what they think they can do. So yes, it is somewhat similar, but there are a few differences.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So when you start to put your little LLC together, that is the LLC that you do your movie with or your TV show with. So it's the LLC that holds all the rights and handles the production. So that's the first thing you're going to do. And it is that LLC that does the deals with everyone. So that is something you're going to do very, very early on. And when I do it, I launched my LLCs in a state where I don't have to pay taxes, because at this point, like Delaware or Nevada or New Mexico, at this point early on, I don't know where I'm going to shoot. I don't know what subsidies I'm going to use. I have no idea where the journey is going to go. So early on, I simply just do a $149 LLC with the registered agent in a territory or in a state where I don't have to pay taxes, so that I don't have an expense. That's just me. You can do it in California. You can do it wherever you want to do it. In California, you have to pay $800 every year. It's okay. Do it your way. I can only tell you this is what I do. I usually choose Delaware, New Mexico, or Nevada, depending. And then what I do when I figure out where I'm going to shoot, I'm going to do another production entity at that location that is simply just doing the local production. That's how I work. So I end up having, in many cases, two LLCs, one that ends up holding the rights and becomes like the holding entity later, and then the other one that is local, that is basically the production service entity. That's kind of my steps. But again, if you just have one, that's okay too. This LLC, the first one, the one that you would first launch with all the rights, is also the LLC that you share membership interests with your equity investor. So when you do the first conversation and you have the first conversations with your equity investor, you're going to say, I put all the rights into this movie LLC or TV show LLC. And this is the LLC that holds all the rights. And this is the LLC that you will be a part of. And because this LLC does all the deals, you're automatically involved in everything. Because if you do the local LLC that becomes the production services entity, your first LLC is going to have a contractual relationship with that local LLC. So your investor is always combined and included into all the other deals that you're doing subsequently. And they understand that. So the first LLC that you do would be the LLC that you do your investment agreement with, and it's the LLC that you share membership interests with. The idea here is to share as little membership interest as humanly possible, because this is your rights holding LLC. So it's the baby in essence. So if you give away the limbs already early on, the head, the toes, the other arms, the belly, you know, you're not going to be left with anything than 2 nostrils. You don't want to do that. So you want to really have conversations that are very tough, where you say, you know, if an equity investor comes to you and says, I give you 50% of the money, I want 80% of the LLC, that conversation is going to probably end pretty quickly, because there is no point in you doing this. Unless you're absolutely desperate and you don't care about making money and you just want to do it because, you know, you can, with someone else giving you the other 50% not wanting anything. Very unusual. But be very protective of these membership LLCs and try to do a deal with your equity investor that is an industry standard deal, which is the equity investor is going to have 50% of the amount in relation to the budget that they're funding. We've talked about this. If they're funding 50% of the budget, they get 25% membership interest. If they're funding 30% of the budget, they get 15% membership interest. It also relates to the profit participation. It's the same thing. If they bark, you'll say, well, this is industry standard. And if they want a little more, you can do a little more. Anytime you give more than 50%, you're in trouble, because that way you also give away approval rights. You don't want to do that. You want to keep 51% as your ironclad absolute minimum to be able to hold all approval rights. And when you give these people membership interest, you give them non-voting interest. You don't give them actual interest that have any voting rights attached to them. They're basically silent membership interest. They have no rights, they have no voting, they have no nothing. In the investment agreement, you're obviously going to talk about certain approval rights that the investor has in case of material changes, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But as it relates to the membership interest, it's important that you only give them membership interests that have no voting rights, no approval rights. When you work on a project, and there is 1,000 ways for a project to find you. I mean, I got one from the guy where I buy my muffins every morning. And that's not bad, because this industry is beautiful, where beautiful stories can reach you wherever you are. So don't hesitate when you find a story somewhere that finds you and you're like, oh my God, this is actually great. I think I can do something with this. But the important thing is that you make it yours. Whatever it is, wherever it comes from, you make it yours, and you don't do anything until it's yours. Meaning, you have an option agreement, you have a purchase agreement, you have a co-production agreement, you have something that gives you the right to get this thing done and to call the shots. If you don't have it, if people do not want to give this to you, you leave your hands off it. It will always end in drama. Don't do it. Especially when you have friends that say, you know what, let's just work on this together and we're going to figure it out later. Bad. Don't do it. It's the end of the friendship, the least. So be honest and say, Jeanette told me, call her if you need information. You say, I really want to make sure that everything is is clean, that we both know what we're talking about. Everyone has a clear understanding of what the roadmap is. Talk like that, especially when it's a friend or someone you know. Everyone wants to know the roadmap. No one wants to waste their time. So I think everyone can appreciate your approach in saying, let's lay out the roadmap together early on, and then we can also see early on where the different interests might lay. You find out your friend wants, I don't know, someone with pink hair in the lead, coming up with a stupid example, right? And you're like, I don't like pink hair, I want green hair. Whatever it is, you want to know these things early on. It's going to save you a lot of headache. So the other thing that happens a lot is that you might work on a project that has been somewhere before, or been with another producer before, or with another production company, or was a project that was in turnaround, or it was owned by a studio or a network station, and you can get your hands on it, and you really believe in it, and you want to make it happen. I'm working on a slate deal right now with someone who is working on the rights for Friday the 13th, huge brand. Let's see if we can get them or not. Who knows? But, obviously there is a long tail of nonsense happening with that, and who knows if he can secure it. Point is, if there is a project that you have your hands on that has been somewhere else before, you need to know this, because wherever it's been, there's the likelihood of there having been costs associated with wherever it was is pretty high. And these costs travel with the IP, and you then become responsible for them in certain cases, in pretty much in many cases. You don't want to deal with that. If you deal with it, you want to know what you're dealing with. So if it is a project that another producer has, or it was somewhere before, ask the question about, is there any turnaround clauses I need to know about? Is there any turnaround costs associated to this? Is there anything in development? Was there any investor that gave money to this? What happened here? And if there isn't anything, I need you to give, when you give me the project, sign a waiver that you're not asking for money. And if anyone asks for money, you're going to be paid. So put the liability on whoever the person is that gets you the project. It's not entirely clean, but at least it's a first step if people just don't have the information. Ideally, you want to know what the deal is. So if there is a project that has, I don't know, 200,000 turnaround fees because some investor, invested in some of the development, you're going to then talk to that investor and that person and say, listen, I'm working on this project. I want to option it. I know you had money in it when it was with this other person or this other producer or this other studio. I want to honor that, but I'm not going to be able to honor the entire amount. I know you owe 200,000, but I can only give you 50. Better 50 than nothing, right? What's his choice or her? The choice is this thing doesn't get made. And the other choice is they make something with you because you're trying to get it made. So the likelihood of that person to agreeing with you on something is pretty high because the other choice they have is not getting anything. In many cases, that's the case, right? So don't be shy to ask for these fees to be reduced and renegotiated, is what I'm trying to say. So when you work with the writer and the writer created the original material, that road is pretty clear. You option the script from them. You talk about rewrites, what you're paying. You talk about the purchase price. You're talking about the option price. Obviously, the option price goes against the purchase price. So everything is kind of accounted for. That's a pretty normal conversation. But let's say you are the one that had an idea and you hire a writer to do your idea. That's a different story because you own the idea, you own the IP, and you're doing a writer for hire deal. So now you're just hiring them to write the script for you. Obviously, they're not going to do this for free, but they're also not going to ask, hopefully, for the entire amount up front. So you do kind of a step deal with them and saying, here's what I can pay now, here's what I can pay when I get the first draft, here's what I can pay then, and the majority should be paid when this thing is going and when all the finance sources are put together. That's something to think about, right? When you have a writer that you work with on a TV show, they might just want to do the Bible and the pilot. So you talk about that too. I have this idea for a show. Can you get me a Bible? Can you do this, that, and the other? Like in Marilyn's case, she has a book. So if she wants to do a TV show of her book and she wants to hire a writer to help her with it, she's going to say, the book is mine. I wrote the book. You're the writer, you help me with the Bible, and you might help me with the pilot script because you're experienced and you know how to work this because you're an experienced TV writer. I don't have that much experience, so I'm relying on you for your services. That's a conversation to be had. Now, when that writer goes home to his wife and says, oh my God, I read Marilyn's book, it's amazing. I'm going to do a TV show about it. And then the wife at home is cooking her spaghetti and says, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this. Here's an idea that I have. That's great. But you need to make sure that then the wife signs a waiver that idea is not something she's going to come around later and saying, that was my idea, I want to get paid. We mentioned this, I think, in week 2, but I want to reiterate it because it is an important point, and I cannot tell you how many times it actually happened to me that these people come out of the woodwork and said that line in the script was my line, and it cost me $75,000. Not kidding, actually happened. You don't want to be there. So you want to make sure that the writer understands that whoever is working with him on that idea needs to sign a waiver that all the rights are transferred to you. So just keep that in mind because the development process is a big process and a lot of people have great ideas and then later they call around, come and asking for money. You don't want that. So keep it clean. It's your idea. They're doing the service. And if they have a good idea, it becomes yours because they're waiving everything. Or you don't use the idea. That's another option. You can say, you know what, that idea that your wife had while she was cooking spaghetti is interesting, but I don't think I'm up for that. I don't like it. So these things you have to remember because when ideas get born, a lot of people have good ideas that you might pick from and that you might use, and that's okay, and that's good to do. You just want to protect yourself. So again, you're checking underlying rights, make sure that you get your hands on the underlying rights, and you're going to check at some point what is called the chain of title, which is the chain of where the project was at what time, who has anything against it, meaning is there any money going against it. That's done by a law firm that do this for a living. It's like an escrow company, and that is not going to be necessary to do until you're close to your bond closing. But you want to at least know any bodies that are buried on that path, so you don't have to deal with them last minute. What did I miss? I think I covered most of what this is about. Do you have any questions about this? Good. So what you, oh, yes, Joseph, you can, guys, you can just talk. I don't look at the, I look at the different screen here. Go ahead.
Victoria's hand was up before mine.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
And mine too.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
had a question about like going back a little bit to LLCs. So like you should always open up a LLC if you're like independently producing something, definitely. But like what if your intention is to just sell it to a studio and have them take over everything? Like, do you still need to register an LLC if you're not going to be doing any of the production costs yourself?
You don't. If you
Okay.
are planning on just going and pitching this to someone,
Yeah.
forgetting everything you learned in this class, perfectly fine. You don't need an LLC then.
Okay.
But the
Okay.
point is, you don't know that when you go out. You
Yeah.
must know it. And the minute you are talking to someone to help you open the door to someone else, let's say you have a great idea and you meet this person who has a deal or has a great relationship with Netflix, and they're going to open the door for you and they're going to want something for it. That means there's going to be an agreement in place. And that agreement is better done with an LLC than with you personally. Is this for your protection?
So
Any-
if you're co-producing something with another studio, it's in your best
Oh,
interest
no.
to have an LLC
No, no.
regardless.
Well, I mean, I do everything with an LLC because I don't ever want to be personally liable for anything. So even when I do a deal with Netflix, it's going to be an LLC. It's never going to be Jeanette Milio personally. That's
Yeah.
just me, right? But you, Victoria, you can write something as a writer, right? And you can then give it to the studio and they love it and they do it. That's fine. But many writers actually have loan out companies, meaning they have LLCs. They don't operate under their own entity because you never know. If there is a lawsuit and you have to sue, you don't want to be personally liable for stuff. The
Mhm.
LLC shields you from any liability in relation to your project. So it's not a bad thing to spend $149,000, just $149,000, no, $149 to be shielded from liability. That's why I do it. Because
Yeah.
I know that I don't know the path of realizing my project when I start out.
Yeah.
And that's why I just say, you know what, I'm going to just launch the LLC and then I can have conversations with whoever and their dead grandmother wants to work with me on it. And then I'll do the deals with my LLC. And if
That
I
makes a
do,
lot of sense. I have a, can I give you a part 2 question to that
Yes.
then? So like especially if the initial intention is to just go to kind of studios and stuff, like, is it then like is it okay to register a production company as an LLC, which you would be, having a slate of projects with, or should you like absolutely definitely still just like register that LLC depending on the project?
well, it depends on how you plan yourself, what your bigger picture is. Let's say you want to have a production company and you want to do more than one project,
Yeah.
right? It is better to then have the production company, Victoria Films LLC, and then Victoria Films owns Movie One LLC to then do Movie One, Movie Two LLC to then do Movie Two.
So
Even
just 2 LLCs?
need 2 LLCs, yes.
Okay.
One
got it.
LLC
Okay,
that
that makes
is-
a lot of sense.
I have one LLC, which is Aligned Cinema LLC in
Mhm.
the US, and then Aligned Cinema GmbH in Germany. So I do all my European deals with my German company. I do all my non-European deals with my US company, right? But I
Yeah.
do them through, if it's a finance deal, it depends. If it's a movie, if it's a direct, like let's say I do a slate deal. Right now I'm working on the slate situation. I would do that with my general LLC because the entire slate is being financed, right? But if I do a deal with an investor who just wants to do one series with me or one project, I'll go into my project LLC that is owned by Align Cinema 100%, and then do a deal with that entity through my movie LLC, through my project LLC.
So if you were to go to Netflix and sell your project, would you do it with your movie LLC or your
Yes,
production
movie
LLC?
LLC.
Movie LLC?
Yeah, because I'm selling them that one project. I'm not selling them my company.
Yeah, and then I guess like if they wanted to do like continuous projects with you, like sign like a first look or an overall or something, then they would probably just sign that agreement with your production company then.
Yeah, if they do, let's say if I pitch a deal with you, they're going to do that with your production company. Yes.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay.
And where do you go to get the LLC?
Yeah, I can tell you that. It's very simple. There is these two guys, David and Mike, that I work with, and they are from inksmart.biz.
What's it called?
Inksmart.biz. Let me see if I can put the chat out. I can email this to you all.
Yeah.
That's where I go. And I can, if you want to do that, I can send an introductory email.
Yeah, do you have to like, do you pay them anything or do you just pay, they just figure it out for you and pay them the fee?
$149. You pay them and they do everything, and then they send you the registry paper.
That's awesome.
They send you a draft for the operating agreement, because every state has a different operating agreement, and you're going to need that. So they're going to send you a draft for whatever state you are doing the LLC with. And then they're going to charge you per month, per year going forward, I think $49 for just registry services.
Oh, okay.
So
Did you get a lawyer before you got an LLC?
yeah, I did. And I paid like $1,500 or something like that. And I'm like, why is it so expensive? It doesn't need to be. And that's cheap, by the way. I know a lot of people who paid much more than this. I at least got, not taken to the cleaners that much, but it's 10 times more than what I paid with InkSmart.
Mm-hmm.
But I was new, I was German, I didn't know how to incorporate in the US, so I needed someone to do this for me. After the first time, I'm like, okay, this is not very complicated, I can do this. So, you then live and learn, as I say, and save money.
Yeah.
So I can share this with you, and it's basically just a registry company that goes for you. You could theoretically go to the registry website yourself for that state, but I'm a lazy bugger. And I don't want to work my way through these stupid websites, so I just pay them $150 and say, send me the registry paperwork. I get it in 2 days. What's the point? I mean, it takes me 2 days to just go through the stupid website. So no.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't know if you heard me. Should you get a lawyer before you go through like the LLC thing, or is it relatively safe to just kind of do it yourself without a lawyer?
Yes, you can do this yourself.
Okay.
When I answered the question about the lawyer, I was thinking you were asking, do you need a lawyer to do the LLC, or do you want to use a lawyer to do the LLC? That's why I answered the way I answered.
Oh, yeah. I really meant for just like this initial process
You
of
don't
like
need
even
to.
getting the LLC.
You
Yeah.
don't need a lawyer for this. You can save that money. Joseph.
Hello. My question has to do with turnaround fees. So you used $200,000 as an example and stated perhaps you would offer $50,000 to said producer A. In your experience, have you heard of anything where perhaps you would offer the producer with the turnaround costs $50,000 to secure the rights, and then the remaining $150 in the waterfall, or a certain amount of profit in the waterfall, so that they would have upside up front and upside later?
So you're basically saying that you would acknowledge there is a $200,000 turnaround cost, and you would offer a deal where you basically split that up for them and say, I give you 50 now, I give you 150 later. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes.
Yeah, you can do that. But I'm just saying, why give them more than 50? End of story.
Okay, hardball, understood.
Yeah, because you have to think about what are they facing at this point? They've been with this project probably for at least 3 to 5 years. Nothing has happened. They probably already wrote their investment off. Now you come around and say, I actually like this. I'm going to get it done, but I'm going to get it done differently. But I do need to spend money, and I do need to basically I'm going to have my own development fee. So I can't carry someone else's, but I am going to waste a lot of, not waste, but spend a lot of time on this. So can I do a deal with you, and can we reduce this? It's a very normal thing to ask. Not worse is worse. They say, no, I can't. And then you do what you just suggested. You say, okay, fine. If you're going to play hardball with me, can we at least divide the cake and saying, I'll give you some now and I'll give you the rest when it's actually happening, which is still a better situation than you're in right now. I think many people would agree to your suggestion. I'm just trying to not pay. That's just me.
Understood. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, Marilyn, shoot.
Yeah, I have a LLC in the progress because, what happened is I had to dissolve it for a while, and now I'm trying to bring it back out to, it was in Las Vegas. Then I spoke to someone that says, oh, you can't have an LLC in Las Vegas. So I thought, okay, well, why can't I? Said, well, they're just not allowing it anymore. So then I ended up, now I'm setting it up in California, which I have to pay the $800. And I was wanting to keep it in, Vegas.
Yeah,
So-
I don't know why you shouldn't have it in Vegas. But that stuff, I'm not too familiar with, honestly. Maybe the laws changed. Maybe there's something that I don't know. I haven't done Vegas in a while. So that is not something I can actually give you an answer to. I'm sorry.
That's
But
okay.
there are other options like Delaware or New
Yeah,
Mexico. I love New Mexico because it's so easy.
yeah.
The likelihood of me shooting something there is actually not, so low. So it might just kill two birds with one stone.
I'll probably sign it up in Las Vegas at this Ink Smart Biz. I'll have them set it up for me.
Smart.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So when we talk about co-production deal memos, right, we're talking about different situations. We can talk about something where we have a scenario where you work with another producer who has a project that comes to you for a certain reason, and you say, I'd like you to help me with this project, or you go to another producer that you believe in could help you and say, I have this project, I want to work with you on this project. That's a simple cooperation. That's a simple co-production agreement where you basically both agree, we're doing this together, we're splitting the pie in the middle, and we all work on everything.
Mhm.
Sounds good. However, you still need to divide down the baby in saying, who's going to feed the baby what? Who's going to do what? What are you going to do? What am I going to do? You need to have that conversation, and you need to put that in the agreement. So if you have this co-producer because you need them to help you raise money, then the co-production agreement would say, we are co-producing this, and the co-producer would have 50% of whatever I have in case he or she is able to provide full financing or a minimum of such and such amount by such and such date to my project. So you're very specific about when they have to give you what. And then they're going to get a credit, and then they're going to get money, and then they're going to get whatever they get. And if they don't get the exact amount, have less, or by the time this deal is over, or you renegotiate, maybe they get close. So you then start renegotiating, but you don't want to be in a situation where you just have a deal that says we do everything together and then they don't do anything. So be specific, but that's a very normal and very often happening situation. We need to talk about the fact that you do not want to give this person approvals because you're the one reliable, you're the one responsible, and also obviously you've got to be reliable, but you are responsible for whatever happens with the project, meaning you're responsible to the investors to be paid back. You're responsible for all the legal situations that are coming up in connection with the project. So you cannot have this other person that you're doing a deal with be the one that has all the approvals. Doesn't work because they're not responsible for anything. So you have to keep all the approval rights. You have to keep all the final say on everything. You can say something in the agreement that says you give them a meaningful consultation. That's actually a legal term. Meaningful consultation means they actually have to be meaningfully consulted. So you are going to talk to them about what you're planning to decide, and you do have them give you feedback on it. And if you do agree to put that in an agreement, you actually have to do that. It's a legal thing. So the final, however, should lay with you. And obviously you're going to talk about how much money, obviously you're going to talk about how much back end. If they make a contribution to the project that is really one that gets it made or gets it close to getting it made, you can be open to sharing your share, meaning outside of what you have to give an investor, your share with them. You don't know yet what your share is. So you basically need to define it as saying, if you give me X amount, if you raise X amount by X date, whatever I'm left with at the time we are producing this TV show and movie, I will be happy to share with you. You can do it like that. but you cannot give them a definitive percentage because you don't know what you're going to have in the end. So don't do that. Just give them what you believe is going to be a portion of yours. You can also say something like, I'm going to give you 30% of whatever I'm left with, because all you're going to give me is Mickey Rourke in the lead. You know, it depends on what they're doing. So this conversation that I'm sharing with you has to do with back-end profit participation, right? So be a little reflective of the value of the scope that they're delivering to you. The rights will always stay with you. The rights for the projects always stay with you at all times. You're not sharing those with anyone, and you're going to make a point in the agreement to say that the rights stay with you. The only thing you're sharing with the person is the profit participation, and you might agree to pay them a certain fee if they do what they're supposed to be doing. The end. You're not sharing the IP, you're not sharing the copyright, you're not sharing anything more of the baby with them. The exception to that rule is when you do a co-production agreement with a producer who is in a local country, or in a country where you want to shoot, and he is the local producer, and in order for him or her to get the subsidies to flow, they have to have the rights. In that case, you have to assign the rights to them for a certain amount of time, and then they come back to you. But you're going to have to give them everything, because otherwise they're not going to be able to get the subsidy. So you just have to know that, and you don't have to be scared. Just make sure they come back to you after that. And in that situation, the deal would be, this is an international co-production deal, and you're going to raise money in Spain for me because you're the Spanish producer, and you're going to get me 35% of the expenses, which is going to be $5 million if we do what we say we would do. And I will pay you 5% of whatever you get to me out of Spain. Very normal terms, absolutely industry standard. So if you have a subsidy producer like this, don't really give them more than 5 to maximum 7%. If they ask for more, it's usually not great. If they're the only person you can deal with and you trust them and you think they're worth it, it's up to you. I have never paid more than 5%. So you have to just make sure that you are okay with giving them the rights for a certain period of time, and then having them come back with you. And in the international co-production agreement, you also don't give away any approvals. You also don't give away any IP rights per se. You only give the rights that are related to, let's say, the script. So you're not giving them, let's say you have the project that's built on underlying rights like a book, right? You're not giving them your deal with the book person or the book publisher. You're giving them only the rights that are related to what is happening with this book rights, meaning the TV show or the movie. So make sure that you really specify what rights you give them, and you only give them what they actually need in order to get the subsidy for you. When you do a deal with an executive producer, that is usually someone in the film industry that relates to money or distribution. It is someone who you would talk to and say, I'm working on this project, and I kind of want to, see it done, with this or this network, or I want to get it financed, and I really need help in setting it up, right? That's something that an executive producer would help you with, and that's okay. But here too, you define exactly what you want this person to do, and then you define exactly what you want to pay them and when you want to pay them. They will, if they know what they're doing, they will be honest in telling you, I'm looking at this thing and I don't think I can be helpful. I don't know how to sell this. It doesn't have any of the elements that make me sell this. If they're honest, they will also tell you where their limitations are. Or they say something like, I'm not connecting with this on a creative level. That's okay too. So make sure that you understand that they really can help you and that they're giving you an honest feedback. Because many people are going to say, this is just a great idea, it's just a great idea, and then it's going to sit with them and nothing happens. So you want to make sure that they really are into this and push them to kind of sense if they're giving you lip service. Or, I mean, when you come to me with stuff, I'll tell you immediately, it sucks, go somewhere else. I'm very straightforward with that. I don't have time for this. And I don't want to waste your time either. And a lot of executive producers like me that have done a few things, they will do the same thing. It is the kind that that just, they're either too nice or they're kind that don't want to burn bridges. And it's a Hollywood thing not to burn bridges. Over it. So, it's okay if they deliver something And you find out pretty quickly, but it is always like, it takes a while to find out that they actually didn't really like it and couldn't really do anything with it. So sometimes it's just better to say to them, listen, only take it on if you really think you can do something with it, and only take it on if you really think it's for you, if you connect with the material on a creative level as well. That's the job of an executive producer. And here too, you talk about what approvals they want, if any. If they are, in most cases, they don't want any approval unless they're the one actually financing, which also can be that you're talking to an executive producer who's also a financier. In that case, yes, they're going to have approvals. But if they're not the ones signing the check, there's no need for you to give them any approvals. You're going to talk to them about what fee you get, you have to pay them at the time they're looking at the project or early on. Usually shouldn't be that much. And then what they get out of the budget and what kind of profit participation they get. Here too, they get a share that should come from whatever share you have left. You don't want to, again, cut the baby's arms too early. When you talk about a packaging or creative producer, it's also like an associate producer or a co-executive producer or a creative producer. What else could it be credit-wise? I mean, it's those kind of people that help you with little things that are also important though. Like maybe someone has a great location that really works for your project, or someone who knows a killer casting director who can get you a great cast. They don't know the cast direct, but they know a great casting director. Whatever their relationship is to whatever they're doing, it's usually related to packaging or creative work. So those people would obviously also get an agreement and a fee, and it would be also related to what it is that they do. They don't usually get much backend. I put it in here because sometimes they ask for some, but they usually don't get much backend. So if they ask, just give a small percentage of whatever you have. When it comes to turnaround, here's what's going to happen with someone like that. So if you come to me and I become a packaging producer, let's say, and you want me to talk to Gersh agency because they represent me and they happen to have the actor that you want. If I put the actor on your project, which then makes this project happen, right? And then you decide, I really don't like Jeanette's hair color these days and I don't want her on it. I'm going to be sticking to your project forever. I'm not even if I don't ever lift another finger, the fact that I gave you your cast makes me automatically part of your turnaround. So I be sticking onto your project as long as you're using my talent that came through my relationship with my agency. That's what the turnaround clause means. So if it's me who knows the stuff, I'm going to say to you, if my actor is going to stay on your project, I'll be a part of it, even if you're not a part of it anymore. That's just the given. So that's where you're going to deal with someone like me who knows their stuff, who will have a relationship to actors. That is important. Maybe there's someone who has a relationship to an actor who doesn't say this, and you obviously they're not going to suggest it, right? But just be aware that it could be something that they might ask for. And if they don't ask for it, you don't mention it. You just say, great, you're going to be executive producer, you're going to get me make it work, you're going to get money for it, you go home. Thank you. The end. And you're only going to be part of this deal as long as I'm part of the deal. And if I don't do the movie, it's over. And if Mickey Rourke goes and does the movie, it's over for you as well. So you need to be clear about these things. Any questions on this? Okay. So when we talk about talent deals, let's look at the director deal. Obviously, it starts with the pay or play offer that says, here's what we're going to shoot, the title, here's where we're going to shoot, here's when we're going to shoot, here's what the budget is, here's who's producing, here's the time frame. And you're going to put all these things into the offer first, and then they find their way into the engagement letter, which is basically the contract between you and the director. The contract will include that you can fire the director when they cannot be bonded. Very important, because many directors, I'm not going to say many, but some, even people we know, cannot be insured. So you need to know this, and you would be surprised. I'm not going to name names, but you know them. You need to make this a condition to your deal with the director. You also want to make a condition to the deal that they are, when they do the movie with you or the project with you, they're subject to DGA rules and regulations, because most known directors are going to be in the DGA. And it's good for you because the DGA has their own rules and regulations that protect the director, but they also protect you as a writer. They say things like, the director has the right to edit his version, and they're going to have, then you edit as the producer, and then they have one more say, and then it's over. Those kind of things are important because you don't want to go back and forth in the editing booth for 15,000 years because you can't get anywhere with the director who always wants to change what you change. Happened to me. I'm speaking from experience. So when you say DGA rules and regulations apply, you're also protecting yourself from things like that. You're not going to give the director a final cut ever, 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 ever. I don't care what they ask for. You're never going to give them final cut. There is no universe where you do this. So just know that this is not something that happens. I mean, maybe the studios give final cut to, I don't know, some famous schmamous person. You, as someone who is financing this independently with investors' money, who you are responsible for, will not be able to do this. Because what you're doing is you're basically giving the power to the director. The director doesn't have a relationship or a contract with your investor, and you're now putting them in charge of your project, the outcome of your project, and you can't do that. So you have a certain due diligence that you have to do, and you have a certain duty to your investor, and that is that you keep control over the project at all times. That's the duty that you have towards your investor. So keep that in mind. That means no final cut for the director. And you can explain that to them, and many directors get it. Another thing I do, that's just me, I also fire the director if I cannot get the cast that I want, because certain cast doesn't want certain directors. That happened to me too, and it's painful. But I don't want to just throw my project into the garbage because I can't cast with this director and, you know, make my investor less money. And or maybe the investor says, well, if you don't get the cast, I'm not giving you the money, so there isn't really a project. So I'm going to ask my director for understanding that if the cast that is required to make the financial model work does not attach because of him, I can release him out of the contract without any further obligation. I might have to pay him a little development fee for his time that he helped, but no further obligation. So that's something you might want to put in there, because you never know how actors respond to certain directors. So you just, it's a thing. And again, I'm speaking out of personal experience where I had to let someone go because my lead cast did not want to work with that person. When it comes to talent deals, again, you have a similar pay or play. It talks about, here's what we're doing, here's where we're doing it, here's how much you're going to get paid, here's all the perks you're getting. You get your own trailer, you get your own makeup, you get your, you get 2 tickets for your mistress, who the hell knows. So you put all these perks in there, and whatever is important for the actor, right? And then this all finds its way into the engagement letter. The engagement letter also then talks about you have to be bondable, meaning no drugs, no nonsense. You have to do a health test. You have to do certain meetings. You have to do appearances for marketing. All the stuff is in there. So you are very specific in your talent deal as to what you want them to do. You also are very specific about what you don't want them to do, meaning you do want them to agree to the project with the director. You're going to mention the director, and you want them to approve the director in the deal, but you're not going to give them any other approval rights. You're not going to tell them you can change the script, or you can change, which by the way also applies for the director. Once they do a deal with you, it's based on the script and subject to their approval at that moment of the script that you're doing. So be very specific in both cases, what script you're dealing with, where you're shooting, all these things, and what budget range, important too. You don't want the director to say, when we talked first, it was a $10 million budget, but I kind of really need 20. Happens, right? You don't want to have that conversation. So you want the cast and the director to be very clear about the terms that you already have established, meaning this is the script that we're doing, this is the budget that we're operating in, this is the range. So we're not changing this. There is no changing. And for the cast, it's very important, because I cannot tell you how many times I get calls from, a cast member in the middle of the night saying, I thought about my role, and I really think the motivation should come from a different place, and I really should be playing it like this. I'm not kidding. This actually happened, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, you kidding? Don't want to deal with this. So you go back to them and say very gently, A, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I want to go back to sleep. And B, I have investors and I have distributors. They already bought the script the way it is, and I don't really have the power to change too much. I'm very sorry. I wish I could, but I can't. So push the, you can push the responsibility to someone else if you don't want to tell them yourself, I don't want to do this. Because you also want to have a good relationship with cast, but you have a few outs here. So just know that it's gonna come, actors always, and so listen, if an actor comes to you and they want to change a role in a way that actually helps, do it. It's not gonna, it feels right to you, it feels right to the director, and it elevates, and it doesn't change the genre, everyone's happy, feel free to take the idea and make it your own. But don't agree to it because you're working with a high-level actor and you want to make them happy. Directors have a tendency to want to do that. So you're not going to find a friend or supporter in your director. So just know that the director is going to likely side with the actor, because the way the career works for a director is if the actor wants to work with me, it also elevates me. So the interest here is not entirely aligned in certain situations. So just know that. You cannot ask your director, what do you think? Should we do this? Should we change the script? What do you think? Wrong person to ask. You need to trust your own instinct in saying, is this change going to affect the genre? Is this going to affect what I'm shooting? Is the one company going to kill me? This is the questions you have to ask. So while you can have a chat with the director, what they think about it, just keep in mind, they have a different agenda. Their job should be, we want to do the best movie ever, but when they're in the mix like this, they don't always know that quite then and there, if this is going to make the movie better or not. Because many movies and many TV shows are decided in the editing room, honestly. A lot of stuff happens there, and you all of a sudden realize, oh my God, this is such bullshit, I'm going to cut this out. Happens all the time. So when you're in the mix and while you're in production, you're not always making the best decisions on a creative level because you don't really know what you're going to do in the editing room. The safest thing to do is stick to what you got paid for, meaning stick to the script you have, unless you're absolutely sure you can live with the change and it elevates your story. But really be absolutely sure that. Run it by your sales agent. That's, by the way, not a bad idea because they're going to have to sell it. They're going to have to sell it with a change. Am I missing something? I don't think so. Any questions on this?
Jeanette, quick question.
Yeah.
What are conditions that a director would not be able to be bonded? Like, is it behavioral stuff and that kind of thing, or a bad track record, or any number of that kind of thing?
Here's how directors are not going to be bonded. If they have done other movies where they went over budget, bond companies know these because that goes like the wind. That's the kind of news that travels, lack of a better word. Directors who have a tendency to use drugs, show up late, show up not, have anger management issues, make the cast upset, have bad behavior issues, absolutely. And they are known for that. And it's going to say in their contract that if this stuff happens, they can be fired immediately. The bond is going to be mostly concerned about the way the director wants to do each scene that could potentially be expensive. So they're going to have very in-depth conversation with them about scenes, for example, scenes that are underwater or scenes that have a lot of visual effects, scenes that can cost a lot of money, or action sequences, anything that costs a lot of time and a lot of money. The bond company is going to drill the director in detail and sometimes even ask for storyboards for them to tell the bond company how they want to do this. So that's the kind of stuff where the bond company is going to drill in very deep and saying, what's your plan here, dude? How many, what are we lighting? Are we doing, what are we doing? Where are we doing? How are we doing this? What do you see? What am I going to see on screen? They are going to drill into any sequence in your script that costs money. And they know what those are because that's all they look for. So that is why, and if the director doesn't have a sufficient answer, the bond company might say to you, you either cut the scene or you're going to change the director. So there are situations where the bond company is going to put pressure on you and saying, we're not happy with this approach. Or the bond company is going to say, if you want to add another 5 million, then we can do it. So you're gonna face this stuff, and you don't know what you're gonna face because you're not the bond company and you're not the director, right? So you need to protect yourself by saying in this agreement that the director has to be bonded and insured by the bond company, and that's your out. In case there's, the bond company in that case really helps you because they're going to drill down on him. And most directors know this. Most directors have worked with bond companies. They're not necessarily fans for this very reason. But it is for your protection, for your investors' protection. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So we talked about sales agency agreements, and the main point here is that you're not doing a distribution agreement. This is important. There is a big distinction between a sales agency agreement and a distribution agreement. And there are many sales agents who want you to sign a distribution agreement, and your answer to that is no. The sales agent is nothing more than someone who takes your movie and sells it to a distributor, which can be a studio, a network, or a streamer who then actually distributes, meaning they're showing it in their theaters, they're showing it on their television station, they're showing it on their platform. A sales agent, last I checked, doesn't own a platform, doesn't own a theater chain, and is not a TV network. Why do they need distribution rights? They do not. So the answer is no. You're going to tell them, I'm going to give you a deal. You're going to sell this beautiful movie or TV show around the world. I'm going to give you a fee for doing that job, and I'm going to give you a fee for the expenses. So you talk to them about what that fee is. You're going to talk to them about how long they are allowed to sell this for you. And you're going to talk to them about what they think they can do, meaning how much money are you going to make me from international distribution by what time? So they're going to put sales estimates together for you. When they put sales estimates together for you, you're just going to let them do sales estimates. You're not going to talk about anything. You're not going to talk about performance clauses. You're not going to talk about anything. You're just going to say, here's the script. I do have an investor standing by, but they need to see sales estimates from you. Give me those. So you get your sales estimates. They're going to show a take and an ask, usually. And it's going to be for every country a number, right? And ideally, those estimates are going to come in somewhere around on the low end at 70%. If they come in lower, you're going to ask why, because it's an important information for you to have. Once you get the sales estimates, you're going to talk to the sales agent again and say, oh, that's great. What is the timeline on this? So let's say I give you the movie tomorrow. How long would it take for me to hit the take? Or in what chunks should I be expecting this to come in? Because my investor is asking these questions. Obviously, they want to know how they're going to get paid back, when they're going to get paid back. So then the sales agent usually will tell you, the bigger chunk comes in the first 6 to 8 months, and then it kind of drizzles in over, the next 2 to 3 years. Usually we have it all by year 3. You're going to say, okay, so if we do milestones, would it be like I could get a third within the first 6 months, and maybe another third within the second 6 months, and maybe another third by the end of year 2. Would that work? Ask them, right? If they say yes, you say, perfect, let's put that in a contract. When they say, oh, I was like, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean you to put it in the contract. You're going to say, well, what are you comfortable with putting into the contract? What are the milestones you want to see here? I do need milestones because my investor is going to want to see them. And they do going to want to see them. And it's for your protection. So let the sales agent give you a contract where they give you a milestone that says, here's what I think I can make by that time, because you're protecting yourself as well in relation to your investor by doing a good job and saying, it's not just me who thinks this movie can make money. This experienced sales agent tells me this movie can make money, and here's how it's going to make money, and here's how much money it makes by what time. So it's not just on you then, which is important. So important is also that you're going to make sure that the sales agent agrees to a collection account, which many sales agents, might say, I don't know. I kind of want to just get the money and then I'll do the accounting and I'll send it to you whatever is left. The answer is no, because if the sales agent goes bankrupt, your money is gone. Sales agents are sales agents. They're not accountants. They're not escrow companies. They're not collection agents. They're not banks. Why do they have your money? There's no point. It's your money. There's no point in them holding it, and don't give it to them. I cannot tell you how many producers do this. A majority of producers work with sales agents that actually keep the money and then give them every 3 months or 6 months some kind of a accounting for it, which may or may not be right. I've seen this all the time. You don't want to even deal with this. So you're going to say, we're going to agree on a collection agent. All the money goes into the collection account. You, sales agent, get paid out of the collection account. You will also get paid after my senior lender has been repaid. And if there is if we are dealing with bills and residuals, they have to come out too. So the sales agent has to understand when they get their fees paid and when they get their expenses paid, and they have to be okay with that. Most sales agents know these things, but just in case they don't, you need to put this in the contract. You can't just say you get the money and you get it when it comes in. Doesn't work. You have to be very specific in saying you get paid after these things happened. And usually this is all done in the collection agent management agreement again later, but you need to start in the sales agency agreement. So when they ask for, the rights that they are selling, if they are not proven in selling US rights very well and very often, you don't give them US rights. You're better off giving the US rights to a talent agency in many cases. If they do deals with like the Netflixes and the Amazons, because nowadays everything is so mixed and matched, and some people, some sales agents have great relationships with these platforms. You do want to give it to them. You might want to say, for domestic, I'd like to pay less than for international, if that's okay, because with an agent, I would probably pay 5 to 10%. Can we kind of agree on the same thing for domestic? And then international, can we kind of be between like 15 and maybe 25% max as a sales fee? It's kind of the range, right? When it comes to expenses, they usually want a percentage. Your job is to say, I'm going to give you a percentage, but I'm going to cap it at that number. And if that number is reached, no more expenses are going to come. So try to, get the cap in there if you can. Otherwise, your expenses should not be more than 5%. You want to make sure that, hold on a second, Victoria, let me finish this. Okay. You want to make sure that the list of deliverables that they want is very complete. Complete in a sense that they cover everything that a potential distributor would need, because that's what you pay them for. You pay them to deliver the entire deliver element list to the distributor that buys your movie or TV show to be able to air it. And sometimes these delivery elements vary between countries. They vary between buyers. They vary between platforms. A studio is going to need different deliverable elements than a network station or than a platform. So you need to make sure that you know exactly what you're selling and why you're selling it. So when you do a TV show, there is no point in you having theatrical delivery elements in there. You don't need to have, there's no print. First of all, there's no print to begin with. We don't do prints anymore, but you don't need any of the typical theatrical delivery elements. So you're going to ask your sales agent to take those out. And here is why. If they are in there, the bond company is going to want to see them budgeted. Now you are doing post-production budget based on a theatrical delivery element list that you're not going to deliver, but the bond company is going to want to see it. So it's getting very expensive for you. So you need to make sure that the sales agent really only puts in that deliverable element list what is absolutely necessary for your content. So have a very strict conversation with them about where this is supposed to go and what is really needed, so you can have a proper post-production budget. Victoria.
So you had mentioned that for some rights, you shouldn't sell them to, or you shouldn't go through the sales agent, you should sell them to an agency. So can you kind of explain when you would do that, or why you would do that, what kind of rights they would buy? And also, I have another question.
Only domestic, only US. International sales agents are used to sell international distribution rights, normally. US rights, meaning theatrical rights in the US, TV or streaming rights, depending on what it is, are usually sold by a talent agency. However, if your sales agent, the international sales agent, does have good relationships with these domestic buyers, you can do the deal with them. That's what that means.
So like you as a producer, are you repped by an agency, or is it like you're—
I am repped by an agency, yes, but that does it help? I don't know, honestly. I've been repped by CAA, William Morris, now I'm with the Gersh agency.
So can you, so you can sell them to an agency without being repped by an agency?
You can sell them to an agency without being repped, yes. You can basically say, I have this movie, and you can go to William Morris and say, William Morris Endeavor, and say, would you guys want to sell this domestically? And they could sell, they could rep the movie and for the domestic market. Yes, you can do that.
So they would rep that like the movie LLC. They would rep the movie in it like.
They're only doing the domestic deal.
Yeah.
So they basically go to like Sundance or Toronto, where most domestic rights are sold, and they're going to screen it there for you.
Yeah. What department is that even that handles that?
It's the yeah, that's a good question. How do you call them? I think it's just the regular sales division from the agency.
Sales?
Yeah, they have a sales division. Yeah,
Yeah, I've just never dealt with them, so I kind of forgot.
you know,
I can confirm that it's called sales.
Okay.
there you go. That's it. So, and they usually do, you know, they charge you less than a CPA would charge you, which is why I would say it's not the worst idea.
I'm sorry, you said they charge you less than what?
And the sales agent would.
Oh, yeah. And I have another question about the agency. So like I've seen like production companies represented by agencies.
Right.
So, like kind of how does that happen and why?
It happens when you have done a few things and they like representing you because you're not going to be a lot of work for them.
Got it.
Yeah, it's usually not something that happens early on. It only happens when you're already proven yourself. They're a little, I mean, in general, they're a little lazy in general. They want to work with people that can do deals where they don't have to do too much. Kind of what it comes down. It's an agency thing. I mean, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Do I rely on my agent to do the stuff for me? Usually I don't. I do my own stuff.
Yeah.
But it's good to have a different ally as well and say, okay, go there, do this, and you know, have someone else on your behalf walking around and doing stuff.
Awesome.
But it's not something that they only take on people that they agree to take on, and they're usually experienced.
So like if you sell the US distribution rights to an agency, then they can then shop it out to studios and stuff?
Yeah, that's the job.
Got it. That's cool.
Yeah.
Have you done that a lot in the past?
I'm sorry?
Have you done that a lot in the past?
It works. If it's a good project. They don't take on every project, you know. They have to like the project. They have to really like the project. So when we do rev share deals, rev share means you're doing a revenue share agreement with someone who's not paying you a minimum guarantee or is paying you a very low minimum guarantee, and you're participating in their hopefully success in distributing your content. This happens a lot with platforms. In many cases, platforms that are not yet very known because they can't really afford to pay high acquisition prices and high license fees, so they often do rev share deals. You would do a rev share deal only if you cannot sell your content at all, because you obviously want to be in a situation where you get a minimum guarantee paid, and then you get overages if the project works very well. Now, what are overages? Do you guys remember what overages are? Should I explain this? Why don't I explain it? Remember when we do a deal with a buyer, let's say we do a deal with a studio in Germany. Let's say we do a deal with Warner Brothers Germany, right? Because Warner Brothers is also in Germany. They buy the rights for a movie for Germany. They're distributing it in Germany. They're giving us $1 million. It's a $10 million movie. They're giving us $1 million as a minimum guarantee. Minimum guarantee is a different word for a license fee. But the word has a meaning because it is just a minimum that is guaranteed to you as a payment. What that means is if the movie goes out in Germany in the theaters and it entirely sucks and everyone loses their shirt, you got your license payment and you don't care. If the movie goes out in Germany and it has great box office revenues, it has great distribution revenues, it gets sold to the network for good money, it gets sold to the streamer for good money, and the German entity probably bought it for all these rights, then you get money if there is money left. And here's how that works. The distributor in Germany is gonna take the box office that is owed to them. They're obviously also sharing it with the theater owner. We had this in our last case study where the movie box office revenues is shared between the studio and the exhibitor. The studio share is then going to be subject to a distribution fee. It's going to be subject to expenses that the studio had, in this case, Warner Brothers Germany, and everything that they had to spend in order to get the movie out and make it happen in their territory. It's similar to what a US studio would do when they take a movie out and have a P&A campaign and, you know, have a big campaign to make everyone aware of the movie. The same happens in Germany. So they have costs, right? They pay for all this stuff. Now they're going to deduct all this cost and they're going to deduct the fee that they paid you. And if then money is left, they're going to share this with you. And that's called an overage. And usually the deal is that they share it 50-50 or 65-35, depending whatever deal is that is in that contract, in the sales agreement with Germany. So you do get to participate in the upside if your project does very well in the territory that you sold it into, but you're not going to be liable if the project tanks. Make sense? So when you do a rev share deal, there isn't really a minimum guarantee. You're basically relying on this, let's say, platform that you do a deal with, for example, that they do make a lot of money with it, and that they are honest in reporting that they made a lot of money, and that they're showing you what they made, and that they're then paying you in accordance with what they made. This is not, and they also have a right to deduct their fees. They're deducting their marketing fees, they're deducting their distribution fees, they're deducting any expenses, then whatever is left, they give you a share. It is not the best deal because it's very hard to follow what actually happened there and how do you really know how much money they made. It's not the easiest thing to kind of account for, but if you don't have any other deal on the table, it's not the worst thing to do. Okay, so equity investor deals.
And Jeanette, in
Yeah.
your experience, have you had good revenue streams or what you felt were fair revenue streams from the overages in these minimum guarantee deals?
Yeah, I've actually done deals, especially with companies like Constantine in Germany, where I've sold my movies. I've done a deal, you know, like my deal with Sony. I've gotten money from Sony still for a movie that I did 10 years ago. I've gotten good feedback on that. You know, there are territories where I would have to chase, like certain Asian territories, certain territories in the Middle East, but it's sometimes not worth me going there and chasing. I could, you know, go send someone over to do an accounting. I'd have to then pay a local accounting firm, and who knows if they really make the money. So you know, there are situations where chasing those overages is going to be more expensive than actually seeing what's left. But in bigger territories, like the European territories, if nothing comes, like for example, if I get a lot of overages in Germany, I should also be getting some like in England or France or Spain, at least some, because what it tells me is that this is a commercial piece, right? And it usually works kind of in the same taste but territory situation. So if then I don't get anything from France and I don't get anything from Spain or England or whatnot, I'll ask. I'll call maybe Millennium, for example, in England and say, so how did it go? What did you guys make? And show me and blah, blah, blah. And just make a phone call and see what happens. Usually you can track those, and those would be worth sending someone over like an accounting firm and tracing. But usually European territory buyers are pretty honest about that stuff. And I have gotten overages on some of my movies, but there are also some where I didn't get anything. So it's not something that you can rely on, which is why I never put these in my business plans ever, because box office driven revenues is not something I am personally comfortable with putting in my business plan. To me, it's something that I cannot trust because it's so volatile. I don't know what a German buyer is going to do with my movie in Germany. I don't even know what they're going to do in the US because it's not up to me. I don't have any say in that. If they decide to not even take it out, it's their decision. They bought the territory. They can do in the territory whatever they want. So if I don't have a say in what's happening in these territories, I can't really be responsible with what's happening in these territories. Does that make sense? That is why I don't suggest putting box office revenues in any business plan.
Makes total sense. One of the people in a YouTube clip earlier in the class was talking about minimum guarantees, but that internationally you were never going to see any overages. So
yeah, it depends on what movie it is or what project it is. I have gotten, to me, here's the thing. I don't really do movies that are likely going to win an Academy Award, right? Because my movies are usually popcorn and they're very commercial and they're, you know, Jason Statham action thrillers and, you know, those kind of things. So they're movies that, you know, have a taste, but called global. Everyone, you know, it's action thrillers, you know, it's not like very deep, you know, entertainment. It's very superficial popcorn, but it works. That's why, and I focus on this kind of content because I need to produce what makes my investors happy. I personally would maybe, you know, do something sometimes a little different, but if I use someone else's money, I have to do what makes money. That's my responsibility too. So in that case, you're dealing with movies that are really driven by cast and genre, and those usually make money, and those often have overages. If they are released properly, if they don't release them or if they spend too much money in P&A, then you don't. You don't know how much they're using, and you don't know if they're overestimating or if they don't handle it properly. But I've gotten overages from big territories on my movies. But again, it depends very much on the movie, and I would not count on it. That's absolutely correct. So when the person said I wouldn't count on it, he's right. Don't count on it.
Thank you.
So when we do a deal with an equity investor, there are a few things that are important. You're going to talk about what the principal investment amount is. And you want to ideally not have something, if you have the finance plan in accordance with what we've learned, you want to keep your investor somewhere in the 35% range. If the investor is taking over the senior loan position, it can be a 55% of the budget investment. If you want to make them money, it shouldn't be more than that, because it's going to get tricky after that. Unless you have something where the sales agent says, oh, I can make you 120% of your budget. Okay, that's a conversation to be had. But anything less than that, you're going to get into trouble. I had a conversation, I think it was Tiffany, I don't know if she's here today, or Tiffany is here, yeah, where we talked about at length, what are the risks? What are you talking to your investor about what the risks are, and how do you mitigate those risks? You're going to have that conversation. And Tiffany and I talked about what the different risks are. The different risks are, there is a production risk, right? What happens if the production goes belly up, if the production goes over budget, if someone dies, if someone gets hurt? This production risk is covered through the completion bond insurance. Investors are going to be very happy to hear there's no production risk. Thank you very much. Then the second risk is what's happening to the money. If you don't use a collection agent, it can get stuck with the sales agent. It can get stuck with you taking it to Fiji and having yourself a nice yacht that you buy there. It can go places, right? Using a collection agent is going to make the investor very happy, because you're now eliminating the risk of the cash flow coming to where it needs to be. There is no stopping stone. There is no in between. The money comes straight from the distributor, goes straight to the escrow account. No one holds it up. Very important for investors. So that's the second risk that you're going to explain to them that they're not going to have. You're going to talk to them about the fact that your interest is aligned with theirs, because your profit participation, you make money after they already made their money and their premium. You're not going to make this movie or TV show for the measly producer fee that you get, because it's not even worth you getting out of bed for. You know that you're going to have to make money with the movie in order for you to make money with the movie. So if the investor understands it, and they're going to look at the budget, they're going to see what your fee is, and they know you're going to work on this at least a year or two. So they understand that you have a bigger picture in mind. So if they understand that your interests are aligned, that you're not going to make money until they already made their money, they're going to be happy about hearing this. But you are going to be honest with them and going to say, here's what's going to happen. The sales agent gave us sales estimates of 70% from international distribution, right? This is based on a script and a cast and a director package. It's a very theoretical thing. Here's what can happen. The movie gets made based on the script with the actor and the director, but the director somehow was snoozing for 6 weeks and the movie is boring as shit. What's going to happen is whatever hasn't been sold as pre-sales is now likely not going to get sold on the level that was projected, because the movie actually turned out not so great. While the script and the package was very promising, that's why you get some pre-sales. The movie itself, who knows? That's why it's good for you and important for you to have pre-sales, because the pre-sales not only give you an indication whether or not there is a demand for your project early on. Pre-sales are not easy. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not the easiest thing to do. But if you can't do any, if no one wants your show based on the elements that you put together, that should tell you something, which means it probably shouldn't get made. And you cannot go to an investor and say, I'm going to make this amazing thing. No one really wants it right now, but I know it's going to be brilliant. That's just not going to fly. You're going to have to tell the investor, I'm going to protect myself against myself by doing pre-sales of at minimum 30%. If I cannot reach those, I'm not going to take your money, because I want the marketplace to confirm what I know to be true. That's the conversation you're going to have with the investor. So put that in the agreement that you're going to have certain elements in there that are protecting his investment, that are relating to potential pitfalls that often happen in this industry. So you identifying them and you mitigating them verbally and in the agreement is extremely important. You're going to also tell the investor, you can lose all your money. Don't give me money you need. Give me money you have left over that if it is gone, and you're not going to have an issue with that, because that could happen. So you need to think about an honest conversation with them, and you need to think about what can you do about the risks that could happen. So when we talk about premium, obviously you're going to say, I'm giving a 20% premium, industry standard. When we talk about backend, we have the conversation. You want to try to keep it low as possible. You can have a conversation with him about ring fencers. And here's what ring fencers are. Remember in the module that we talked about collateral, meaning the bank is going to look at your pile of your bucket of rights and say, I'm going to attach on these rights to make sure I get paid back. So if you think about the gap loan, for example, if the gap loan is $1 million, you know that the rights value of what's being sold is $2 million. It's double that. You're not going to need $2 million. The bank just wants $2 million to cover their ass. You only need $1 million. So this other $1 million is still available to be repaid, like to the equity investor. This is collateral that's going to come in. If the movie works or the TV show works, this money is going to come in. The bank is just going to hold on to it. But here's what banks do. They don't necessarily always hold on to everything. And sometimes you can ask them to release certain territories to you and take it out of the collateral that they want. So you can have a conversation with them about, do you really need Thailand? Do you really need Israel? Do you really need, you know, I don't know, Taiwan, like little territories like this? I mean, do they really have value to you? And the bank might say, you know what, we don't need those. You then keep those. You take them out of the collateral pool and you make them available to your equity investor to sweeten the pot. And you can say to the equity investor, these rights are going to be used for you for the first repayment of your equity. So you have first recoupment position on these specific territories. I cannot tell you how grateful the investor is going to be to hear this, because no one ever does this. What that means is these territories, first of all, these little territories always sell first. I don't know what's going on, but they always sell first. So you're going to get money back to the investor early on, and that's great. So they're now recouping alongside the bank on these territories, and they love it. So if you do little things like that, it can entice them to work with you and say, oh my God, this is great. I didn't even think of it. I get money early. How fantastic. And there are certain senior lenders that will allow you to do it. It is very project driven, and it's very driven by what sales agent you're using and by a lot of other things. But it's always worth asking the question if they can release a few little territories to you so you can sweeten the pot for the equity investor. The bank knows equity is the hardest money to raise and to attach. And if they want to make deals, they're going to have to help you to get the equity attached so they make money. So they are in your boat, in essence, by helping you get the equity attached. But they also want to cover their butt in saying, we don't want to take too much risk. So if they feel they need those rights, because they're not sure about what your movie is going to do, they're going to not release them. But if they feel, you know what, these numbers are strong, we like the sales agent, we know they're going to make money, they might release some territories to you. So I call them ring fencers. I don't know about any other producer that does this. I have started doing this, and my investors were very happy about it. So this is a Jeanette thing. So, you know, just letting you know, many producers might not be many other producers that do this.
This is actually common in Puerto Rico. We divide Puerto Rico from the domestic chunk for the equity investors.
There you go. See, right here knows. Yeah, there you go. So it's something to think about. You want to talk to your investor about milestone and approval rights. The approval that the investor will have is very limited, and it's only related to whatever changes the value of your project. What changes the value of your project? If you change the genre, if you change the director, if you change the talent, and if you change the finance plan. Those things, if they change, you need to get the investor's approval. If it's something else, like for example, if you change the location and all of a sudden you're not shooting in Puerto Rico and you're shooting in California, you're losing all that money that you would have gotten from Puerto Rico as a tax credit and go to California where you get jack shit. So that's not going to fly with an investor. You're going to have to make a very good case for them to move your movie to California. So if the actor says, I want to shoot at home, and you want to keep the actor, talk to your investor about this, because this could have a significant effect on the recoupment. So there are certain things that you're going to talk to them about if and when the value is changed, meaning the risk profile is being changed. That's something they're going to have approval over. Some investors might require milestones. I've never met anyone that does, but if they do, and you're faced with the question of a milestone, obviously equity investors are high risk investors. So they understand that there is no guarantee that money comes in at any point. But some will say to you, I want to attach to these milestones that you gave to, that the sales agent gave you, and I want to kind of see certain milestones like that also in my deal. So what can we do? So if they ask for milestones, make sure you always give yourself time. So if the sales agent says, I can get $1 million in the first 3 months, the translated milestone to the investor would be, I can get $1 million in a year. So you double the time to give yourself time. You never repeat what's in the sales agreement, because sales agents say a lot of things when the day is long. You want to be safe. And you're going to also say, I'm going to put the milestone in here as I do my best to get there, but it's not going to be a milestone that's going to trigger a default. You can't do that. If that's the case, the equity is a loan. It's not equity. So if the milestone or the recoupment or the repayment triggers a default situation, that means that if you don't pay them, you're going to hand over everything, then this is in essence a loan. Some equity investors do want to give you equity as a loan, and that's okay if you can afford it. But here's what you need to remember. A loan, you have to pay interest for. So if you do an equity investment that becomes a loan, you're going to have to pay yearly interest. And if the equity investor says to you, I'm going to give you $5 million and I'm going to ask for 15 or 10% every year in interest. Well, that money has to come from somewhere. You better make sure you have 10% of 5 million is 50,000. You have that money somewhere, because you need to budget this. This is going to be a fee that you have to budget, because you don't know if you're ever going to get that, and you're going to be reliable for this. So you want to make sure that you have a very clear conversation with the equity investor to say, if your investment becomes a loan structure, we need to talk about the terms very carefully, and they ideally should be resembling what I would have to pay to a bank, maybe a little more, but not too much more. So think about these things when you put a deal together with your investor. The mezzanine investor is for sure a lender. It's just a lender that's a junior lender. So he operates like an investor, but he's basically like a bank. So mezzanine has the advantage of reducing your equity, but has the risk of you losing your movie, because you still have a situation here for sure that if you cannot pay the mezzanine lender back, your movie is gone. They're going to take it over. They're going to sell it the way they want, and your equity investors never going to see a dime. It's a very dangerous situation. I would try to avoid mezzanine like the pest. Only use it if you have to. The bank deal, however, when we talk about that for a minute, that's a deal where the bank will sign a security interest and they will take the movie away from you if you don't pay the bank loan back. And that means the mezzanine lender goes home with nothing, the equity lender goes home with nothing, and you definitely don't go home with nothing. But here's the reality of this. Bank loans usually get paid back. The banks would not be in this business for many years if the risk would be very high. So I have never really had a movie or a TV show where I didn't pay the bank loan back within 2 years. Never. In 45 times I've done this. So that's a risk you can take. The bank loan is fine. Mezzanine, it's a little tricky. Now for the bank loan, all you need to think about is, what are my terms? The bank is going to give you a term sheet very early on. They're going to tell you exactly how much interest you're going to pay, what the discounting rates will be, what territories they're going to leach onto, what agreements pre-sale they're going to want, what assignments they want to sign. They tell you very detailed, very early on what the terms are going to be, and then you're going to translate them into your budget as your finance cost, and you're also going to make sure that they find their way into the collection agent management agreement. You're not going to do a deal with a bank unless you have at least 3 significant pre-sales. They want pre-sales. If you don't have pre-sales, there's not going to be a bank loan. And you're not going to do a deal with the bank unless you have a completion bond. So just know that any project you do where you want a bank loan, you're going to have a completion bond. Now the subsidy lender, I have seen subsidy lenders work with me where they didn't necessarily require a completion bond. So it depends on who it is. But in many cases, you're going to need one. Now, the subsidy lender is going to look at the estimate related to your budget and the expenses in the territory that they're subsidizing, they're giving you a loan for, because they're basically giving you an advance of what the territory would pay you as a subsidy or a tax credit or a tax rebate. So they're going to discount that by the fee that they're charging you. And they're going to look very, very carefully, you know, how much money are you estimating to spend there? And is this an estimate that they live with? They're going to want to see this assumption as to what is being spent and what the tax credit will be done by someone that they're comfortable with. So like the bank wants to have this comfortable sales agent, the subsidy lender wants to have an opinion letter or assumption from an accountant that they trust. So based on that, they will give you an advance and then you can use it for the movie or TV show. There are certain subsidies that will cash flow themselves. Like in Europe, a lot of the subsidies that you will get there, you don't need a subsidy lender for because they cash flow in accordance with the bonded production cash flow plan. So not every territory that you shoot into is going to require for you to get a lender to advance it so you can use it for your finance plan. The trick here is to make sure that you do not move the subsidy lender into any of the recouping positions. They're not recouping from international, they're not recouping from anywhere. If they don't get the money from the territory that you're shooting in, they're out of luck. You're not responsible for this repayment, and that needs to be very clearly put into the agreement. And there are certain subsidy lenders that I've seen that are trying to sneak in. If I don't get paid, I want to be in the waterfall. There's no waterfall for subsidy lenders. So just make that clear very early on, because the minute you put them in the waterfall, you're changing the risk profile for the equity investor, and they're going to have to approve it. Completion bond. The conversation with the completion bond company is pretty straightforward. They're going to look at your script. They're going to look at your schedule. They're going to look at your budget, and they're going to ask a shitload of questions. And they're going to talk to you, your director, your line producer, your accountant, your first AD, your second AD. Anyone who is responsible to put together what they are going to bond. They're going to bond the schedule. They're going to bond the production cash flow plan. They're going to bond the production budget. And they're going to bond everyone who is included in this whole beautiful picture. So for them, it's about how much money do we make? The higher the budget, the lower the risk for them and the higher the fee for them. Your job is to lower the budget and have a lot of exclusions that you don't need them to insure. You don't need them to insure your legal fees. You don't need them to insure your producer fees. You don't need them to insure your writer fee because you already paid the writer. There are certain things that you do not need them to insure. You exclude them, and you're going to tell them you exclude them. This is what's going to generate the bonded strike price. After you take all these exclusions out, you're going to get to a strike price. Also, when there are deferments or in-kind services that you don't pay because your cameraman told you, I'm only going to charge you half my fee and I'm going to defer my fee. That half that's deferred is excluded. Or when the music investment company says to you, we're going to take care of the music budget, exclude it because you're not responsible for it. They pay for it. Hallelujah. You need to really be careful to take out what you can take out and make the bond company agree to those exclusions, because the more you take out, the lower your bond fee. Very important. They're going to look at all the director deals and the cast deals, and they're going to have the director and cast sign certain deals directly with them to make sure that they have a direct contractual relationship with whomever they need to be on top of, including your director and your cast. So they know this and they're going to sign it. So that's just something that's going to happen. So they're going to do health tests and they're going to do all kinds of tests with the director and cast. You yourself are going to have a separate agreement with them as well. It's not just for the movie, but also for your fee. They're going to ask you to hold back a portion of your fee. So just be aware they might hold back 30% of it until everything is done. And they're going to use it if they have to pay something. You need to agree to that. So keep in mind, you know, maybe you have some other places where your fee is located. Maybe call it something else. I didn't say this, and you don't share this recording with anyone, but yes. So there are certain things that you need to talk to the completion bond company about that are for your protection, but that are also for you to be responsible to not just let them walk all over you. Because when they ask for too much money that you cannot finance, if they lift the budget up, your entire finance model blows up. That doesn't help you. So they need to understand that there is a limit to what you can do because you offered an investor a certain return. And if they change the cost component, they're changing the entire risk profile. So that's a conversation you need to have with them so that they know there's not unlimited money here. And then if they want to change certain things in the script to make it less expensive, you can have a conversation with them about it. Or if they want to like cut a few shooting days to have more air, also okay. Those are the conversations you will have with them. It will go very detailed into what are we shooting, how long does it take us to shoot this, how much does it cost to shoot this. This is the kind of stuff you will talk to them about. Any questions about this? Okay, so when we talk about production and crew deals, you're going to have a bondable line producer. This is someone that the bond company is going to be very happy with and that they like. They're also going to want you to hire an accountant that they're very happy with and they like. Those two positions are very important to them. So just be aware of that. I usually work with the payroll company. I often use entertainment partners. You want to do that because it's the easiest for your crew so that they have what they need when they need it. You're also going to have some independent contractors that are not people that work with you all the time, or that are service providers for a certain something that they do. Maybe they build a set that takes a week and then they're out. And you're going to have deal memos that, will obviously, in the US, going to be either W-2 or W-9. And all that will be handled by the payroll company. With the guild, you're going to have to be a signatory. We know this. And they may require a bond. This is something where you're going to be early on talking to the guilds and say, okay, what are you requiring for me to do? Let me know what the residuals are. Give me an estimate. Cheryl, who was with us last week, suggested that if anyone has questions, she would help you calculate what that might look like, which is very helpful. I never had that. I wish I would. It was always a surprise for me. So if you have someone like that, use her and check out with her what that is. It's very hard for anyone just to know. This is something the guilds will have to tell you. So that is very straightforward. They're going to have to sign what they need you to sign. There's nothing really more about this. When you do in-kind service deals, you have to obviously define what is the role, what are you actually deferring or eliminating? Is there a component that requires a back-end profit participation? Is there a premium that needs to be paid on whatever the amount is that is deferred? And you need to make very sure that you know what it is, because that too will affect your equity investors' recoupment position, because in many cases, this deferment part is paid before the equity is paid. You are working with very often visual effects company and post-production houses. I would always get some quotes. Don't just agree with one post house and say, oh, this is great, we're going to do post-production with you because you're going to defer half of my post-production budget. Talk to all of them and see what the value is, and really compare apples to apples here, and make sure that whatever is being deferred in a way that the bond company can agree with, because they might have something to say about that too.
Question.
Yeah.
On in-kind services, with regards to the premium, do you kind of have leverage over how much that premium is, just based on the fact that there's a lot of different in-kind service companies out there?
Yes, you do. I've never paid more than 10%. I wouldn't pay more than that. What's the point? So try to stay under that. The collection agent management agreement, I have a example on Canvas. It's just an agreement really that puts everything into one place. All the finance agreement, all the sales agreement, everything is right there. And it's very easy for someone to then see how it all fits together once the collection agent sends you a draft. You want to make sure that when they send you the first draft, and they create this, you don't have to create this, and your lawyer does not have to create this either. You tell them, here's what's happening, and then you send them the agreements to support the information that you gave them, and then they'll send you back the first draft, and then you read through it, make sure that everything matches up with the deals that you made, and then you send it back. And then it's being circulated to all the parties that are involved: the sales agents, the guild, the investors, the any producer that has profit participation, the actors, anyone who has hands on the money is going to have a say, and will do some red lines in this agreement. So it's going to circle around to all these parties that are going to be involved, and they're going to make their notes, and it's going to look like little red lines that come back to you. So what I did here is I put, I'm not gonna go through this because I just told you, but this is on one slide. I actually did 2 slides where I put these essential agreements just on a slide for you. So you don't have to remember them all. If you print this out and just keep it somewhere, it's going to at least give you a reference and remind you of what is important for you to remember when you do these deals. There are 2 slides like this that basically tell you about the main things, the main rules and regulations and terms you need to remember when you put these agreements together. So I did one for financing and one for distribution. So this is the general summary for the main points of the main agreement terms that I would like you to remember when it comes time for you to put your own project together. Do you have any questions about this? No? Okay. Then I'm going to do a final prep case study with you. In the final, you're going to have a question where you're going to put together a budget. It's going to be a limited top sheet. So it's not going to be, usually budget is like 50 to 60 pages. I'm not going to have you do that. I'm not even going to have you do a full top sheet. I'm just going to have you do a budget so you just get a feel for what this would look like. What does a top sheet look like? And some of you are going to be bored to death because you've done this 50,000 times, but others might be doing this for the first time. So we're going to put a budget together, and I'm basically just listing here what the budget elements are. So once we do all this, we're going to have a budget. We know, oh, okay, now we know how much this thing is going to cost us. We're going to do a movie called Journey to Bali. This is what it's going to be. Guys, make a screenshot of this. So you're going to have this when you're going to start working on this in a minute. And then when you're done, I'm going to give you a minute. I'm going to go to the next slide with the assumptions. So next slide, here we go. So we're going to have a movie that's going to be theatrically released, and it's going to go on 1,500 screens, and it's going to be a rent-a-studio deal. So we're going to talk to Paramount in this case and say, we want you to release this movie, but we're going to pay for everything. We're going to pay for P&A. You don't have to worry about a thing, and we don't need you to buy the domestic rights. We're going to keep the domestic rights. We're just going to use your studio releasing services to release this movie in the theaters, which is something you can do, by the way. This is, certain studios do this. Not every studio do it, but they do it. And they're going to charge you a fee. You're going to have to find a P&A investor to pay for the P&A, and it's need to be sufficient so that the studio can do what you want them to do. And that's a conversation where the studio is going to talk to the P&A investor to see how much money they'll need for what you're asking them to do. And we're going to have certain territories that are going to be sold, and they are going to be tiered by the bank. And the bank says, tier 1 are these territories, tier 2 are these territories, and here's what that's going to look like in relation to money that I'm going to give you for those territories. Because I'm not just going to give you the entire amount that the pre-sales show, I'm going to discount this. Take a screenshot of this. And then we have a sales agent who's going to charge a certain fee, and we have a bank loan that's going to be done in a certain way. Because when you guys have screenshots, I'm going to have you read this back to me later when I put this case study together for you. So this case study is something that you will very likely face in reality. So what we're doing here today is something that you will very likely have to do on your own at some point. So it's probably not a bad idea to do this one time together, especially since you've done all these case studies on your own and have gotten a bit of a feeling. So it probably is a good idea if we do this together. So you guys made a copy, yeah? So here's our financing sources. We have a mezzanine loan, we have crowdfunding, we have brand integration, we have an incentive, we have some in-kind services, we have equity, we have certain profit participation, and we have certain things we need to deal with in the waterfall, like our P&A investment, like our collection agent, the girls, sales agents, and so forth. So make a picture of this as well. And yesterday I sent you a temp sheet. I'm going to actually open that temp sheet up, and then I have one of you help me with getting these assumptions in there when you have, because I want to show the screenshot as I'm doing this. So we're basically doing this together. So let me try to find the final. I think that's the one. So let me do this first. Can you guys see the Excel sheet that I have here? Does it show up? Yeah, okay, cool.
Yes.
Perfect. I'm gonna move this over here to make sure I know what I'm doing. Okay. So why don't one of you tell me, let's go back to the slide where we know what we need for the budget. Hold on a second. And then you tell me what I need to plug in here so I can generate the budget and have the right numbers in front of me. So can I maybe name one person? Maybe Martier, are you okay helping me with this?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So would you be able to read back to me the line items that we are using to create the budget?
Yes. For story, it's 25,000. Writing 150,000.
Oh, sorry. See, already did it wrong. What? So I got 25, 150.
Yeah. Development is 75,000.
Okay.
Producers and staff is 850,000.
Mm-hmm.
For talent, we have 3.5 million. Oh, wait. No, it's for talent. I read it backwards.
Oh,
Director and
right.
staff is 250. Director and staff is 250.
And I also have a zero too much. Sorry about that. Oh, director and staff is what?
250.
Okay. All right, so below the line is 4 million, or above the line is 4,850,000. So all we did right now, so you know, guys, we're just plugging in the numbers to figure out what the budget is. Okay, go on, Marita.
For production staff, 500,000.
Mm-hmm.
Camera, 250. Set
Hold
construction.
on, I have a typo in here. Sorry about that. Mm-hmm.
Set construction is 25,000.
Mm-hmm.
Locations, we have 50,000.
Okay.
And other production, 6.2 million.
So this is basically a line item you will not find in your top sheet budget because other production elements will be other line items. I just summed it together because they're smaller line items that I didn't want to bother you with. So let's go into post-production.
Okay, editorial would be 320,000.
Mm-hmm.
Film post would be 260.
Mm-hmm.
Music, 120. Oh, wait, I skipped VFX. VFX is 320.
Okay.
And then music is 120.
Okay.
And then other posts will be 650.
650,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just check here. Okay.
And then general expenses and legal fees are 250.
250,000. Okay.
And then
That was-
financing would be 10% of the sum of above the line and below the line.
Right. So I already have those in
Okay.
here and you have that too because they're already formalized. So it will automatically calculate this. So I now have my above the line at 4.8 and I have my below the line at 8.6. So I have a total budget of 13 million. And then we have some contingency. The bond companies likely want to see 10%, but we're going to be aggressive and going to ask them to lower it to 5%. And then the bond fee is going to be charged only on the items that are actually to be charged. So what I'm doing here, you see, I am excluding certain things. I'm excluding the legal fee. I'm excluding certain producer fees. I'm excluding development. I'm excluding writing. I'm excluding story. So I've deducted this because I had a conversation with the bond company to say, I don't want these. I'm going to exclude this. So please don't charge me for these. So I did this on purpose. So you know that this is going to be not subject to your bond fee. Okay, so remember that there are going to be exclusions also in the final for this. So now let's go into our funding situation. Certain numbers have already populated here, and I don't know why, but I'm going to go through them with you anyway. So I'm going to say, I'm going to make this a 0 because I want to start from scratch. Okay, let me do this. So Maritia, if you can go to the assumption page, and what we do there is we're going to first figure out what the budget number is. So tell me the budget that we just came up with, if you remember. Hold on a second. What was the budget? 16 million. All right, I'm going to just view this one thing here. And I'm going to 0 out all the other stuff because this is not going to work. I'm going to have to deal with the, I'm going to have to deal with this later, the strike price, right? So can you tell me what the international, I want to make this 0. I want to make this all 0, damn it. Let's see if I can make this 0. So because I want to go through the steps with you. Populated automatically. I don't want this. All right. So what was the international sales estimates?
They came for 80% of the budget.
Okay, so it's very simple. We have 80% times our budget. So that's the international sales estimate. So Germany was sold for what, 10% of the budget?
Yes.
Okay, so it's basically Germany. We sold the territory as a pre-sale and we got for Germany 1.6 million. Now Germany prepays on signing a down payment of 20%. The way it works, again, when we do pre-sale, the distributor pays 20% upfront and 80% when you deliver the movie. That's exactly what's happening here. Italy, 7%, is that correct?
Yes.
So Italy gives us 7% of our budget, which comes down to a minimum guarantee license fee of 1,123,000 and some change. Their down payment is only 15%. So we put that in here. It's 15% of what they give us. And then they give us 85% when we deliver the movie to them. The UK, is it correct? Is it 8%, Maritia?
Yes.
8% of the budget is this. They give us again 20%. So we get 20% from England right away, and then the 80% they're going to pay us later. France is 9%, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to do that. I have the budget. Here we go. So the down payment altogether, oh, sorry, the subtotal for the tier 1 territory, which are Germany, Italy, the UK, and France, is 5,459,000 and some change. The down payment we have received right this minute from these territories when we do the deal with them is 1,035,000 and some change. This is where we are right now. So now we're selling the smaller territories that the bank considers to be tier 2 territories. Is that a correct, is it 0.5% of the budget? Yeah. So I'm going to do this, 0.5 times the budget, and they're paying 10% down. The same for China, also 10% down. So the tier 2 territories are going to give us 160,000 and some change, and we have 16,000 in down payments. So total down payment that we have right now is 1,051,000. But the sales agent is asking us to pay them already something when we get the down payment at this early stage. But they're saying we're only going to charge you 6%. So we're okay. So 6% of the down payment we have to charge and pay the sales agent, which leaves us with 988,000 right now from the down payment to be using for our finance plan. So let's look at the bank loan. The bank says, I'm giving you 93% of the tier 1 territory pre-sales that you're making. So they're not giving us 100% of the 5,400,000 and some change. They're giving us 93%. We're like, okay, we'll take it. And they're only giving us 60% of whatever we sold to the tier 2 territories. We're like, okay, we'll take that. So the down payments, so we get this number from the bank. This is the down payment that we already received, which is this number. We have to go by the gross number because the distributors, they don't care that we have to pay the sales agent. That's on us. They paid us this number. And the bank says, you already got this number from your pre-sales. I'm not going to pay you what you already received as a down payment. So I'm going to deduct this from you. So here's where they're deducting it, right? So the bank will deduct our down payment here, which leaves us with a pre-sale loan of 5,000,001 minus the down payment. So it's 4,000,001 and some change. We're going to get an interest charged, it's 8%. So we're left with a 3.7 million and so forth pre-sale loan and some change, right? Now let's look at the unsold territories. We started out with this amount. We had sales estimates totaling this, 12 million and some change. And now all I'm doing is I'm taking out the territories that I have sold. These are defined territories: Germany, Italy, UK, France, India, China. I'm deducting just those territories to see what I still am left with. That's all I'm doing. So I'm getting to 7,225,000 and some change of territories I can still sell at this very moment. And the bank looks at this and says, all right, half of this I might consider as a bank loan. But I have to remember that the bank will never give me more than 20% of my budget. And 20% of my budget is 20% of this. So the maximum loan amount the bank will give me is 20% of my budget. No matter how many rights I can still sell, that is all I get as a gap loan. On that, I'm getting an interest charge, and that's what I'm left with. So here is what the bank loan gross amount would be that includes all the interest, and this is the amount that I would potentially get. But I think I have to pay a few more things, right? A loan fee and something, do I?
Professor, I think the interests are different in the assumptions. I think the pre-sale loan is 4%, and then the gap loan is 6%.
The term is 2 years.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Great question. I'm very happy you asked that. Thank you, thank you. So you pay interest for the term, and if the bank says this is a 2-year loan, and you pay 4% per year, you pay for 2 years, which makes it 8%. So remember this too. So did the bank tell you that they have some kind of a loan fee? Can you look that up?
Yes, it's 65,000 plus a legal fee of 25.
Okay, so I'm going to put those in because they're going to be deducted. I have to deduct it. So I end up having 6,528,000 and some change from the bank that I'm left with. So when I go to my mezzanine loan, I have to look at something real quick. Hold on. Hold on a second. The mezzanine loan. I want to see that I make this correct here. So mezzanine loan is 15% of what exactly?
Of the actual production cost that needs to be done.
And here's where it gets tricky. The actual production cost is the strike price. So now we have to figure out what the freaking strike price is. So let's do that first. Before we go to do this, we're going to look at the other things. Crowdfunding, how much was that?
Oh, it's 5% of the budget.
Okay, so I think I have that already in here. I think it's 5%. And they have a commission. There is something development funding that I think we already got. How much was that?
It says 5% of the budget, 25% fees deductible. Of the net amount available at any time, $20,000 was used to pay startup costs.
Correct.
Balance is still available at closing.
Correct. So we had crowdfunding that we did, and we used 20,000 of that crowdfunding already early on to put our project together. So now at this point, because we already got it, we have to now deduct it. So this is why I'm deducting it here. So just to make sure that you understand what we're doing. And brand integration, how much was brand integration?
650,000.
So we got a brand to give us $650,000 to integrate their product. The agency that made the deal happen is charging us 25%. So we're left with 485, but the brand says, I'm not giving you everything at closing. I want to wait until the movie gets out, and then I'm going to pay you the rest. So all we have right now is 50% of what we're getting. We get the other 50% later when the movie is finished. So it looks like the production incentive is driven by the below the line. So all we do here is we look up in the budget what's our actual below the line, which looks like it's 8.6 million. And then the incentive says we're going to pay you 35% of that, which is something that's very real. Most incentives are driven by below the line cost. Not every incentive, I would say very minor. Puerto Rico is an example, as Maite knows. Many incentive regions do not support above the line cost. So just keep that in mind. So it's very real for you to deal with the fact that only the below the line is going to be subject to any kind of incentive. So in our case, that's why we did it. So we're just using the below the line. We're getting 35% of an incentive. We're paying someone 10% to do the deal, to cash flow the deal for us, incentive lender. They also have a legal fee, right?
Yes, 15,000.
15,000. Let me just. So we are left with this. Okay, so in-kind services, let's do those. What was the visual effects?
Both VFX and music are being deferred and paid from revenues on a 10% premium.
Correct. So this is an in-kind service. So we are now realizing whatever the costs are that we budgeted for visual effects and music, they're going to be dealt with like an in-kind service. They're not going to be paid when you're actually paying people, which means right now, at this very moment, when you're financing your movie and you're closing it, this is not something that's going to be paid. So remember this because it's going to be deducted from your budget. So I think we had 320,000 in visual effects, right?
Oh, let me go back.
I think it was 120 in music, if I'm right.
It was 120 for music and 320 for visual effects.
Okay, because we're not paying this, we're now creating a strike price. So I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to figure out what is my strike price. And it's my budget minus these in-kind services that I now don't have to pay because I'm deferring them. So my strike price is actually 15 million. And now I'm going to figure out what my mezzanine loan is because the mezzanine lender said to me, I'm only giving you 15% of the actual production cost that you're actually paying for at closing, which is the strike price, correct? So that would be 15% of the strike price. I hope I did this right. Let me see here, mezzanine, yes. And they want a 5% interest, and that's what we're left with. So we should now come down and have our strike price funded down here. If I'm making, let me just check. Yes. So the equity is obviously driven by what's left. We have all these funding sources. We have a subtotal, which we're coming up with is 13 million and some change. And then we figure out how do we cover our strike price? How much equity do we need to cover the actual cost that we actually have to pay for right now? That's all we need. And we're going to ask the equity investor to just give us the balance for what we actually have to pay for, which is the strike price. And that is 2.3 million and some change. Any questions so far? So far, it's semi-clear. Okay, great.
Did you also deduct from the strike price the story rights and legal fees already?
The strike price is, in this case, not deducting the story rights and legal fees. Very good question, because the story rights and legal fees are paid, but they are not subject to the bond fee because you're telling the bond company, I'm not insuring this. But you still have to pay them because the writer didn't defer their fee, your lawyer didn't defer their fee. You still have to pay these people. You just don't have to insure them for the bond company. So you're paying an insurance cost. That's why you exclude them. 2% of, we excluded about, I want to say nearly $500,000. It's a lot of money we could be using for something else, right? So that's why we do this. So when we go into our recoupment, we look at, again, what is our actual sales? What is our down payment? This is the 80% that we have. This is the down payment, what we have. This is what we're left with. Now we're going to do our box office. So tell me, I think, confirm with me, because I want to make sure this is correct. This is automated already. Was the box office $20 million for the US in the assumptions?
I'm looking it up.
Yeah.
It's on the third slide.
I think it was on the third slide. It should be where it talks about what happens in the US. I'm looking it up right now as well. Yeah, it's $20 million. So in the US, we're renting a studio, and now the movie's finished, and we are out with the movie, and we made $20 million in the box office in ticket sales. These are actual ticket sales. So you go to the movie theater, people are buying tickets, that's what box office is. Again, we have to pay the exhibitor and we have to pay the studio. So we are deducting what we pay the exhibitor, which is in this case is 45% of the ticket sales. So the theater owner, the exhibitor, is getting 45% as a share. So we're left with $11 million. That's what we're left with right now here, right? Here's where we are. The P&A lender says, I'm going to pay for your P&A, and I am calculating, I spoke to the studio and we decided that you're going to need $1,500 per screen. If you want to release the movie on 1,500 screens, you're going to need $1,500 in marketing campaigning money to make that worth your while, to have enough campaign going that people know about the movie. So the P&A is driven by the number of screens. And it's also driven by the kind of campaign you do. By the way, I've seen movies that are $5,000 to $10,000 per screen. It really depends on how big do you go. So in this case, the conversation with the studio was, we want to do medium campaign. We want to be targeted to a certain audience. We want to go into certain cities. So they defined it in a way that it's still something that our investor or P&A investor can pay for. So $1,500 is like a lower fee, but for this kind of movie, it makes sense. So we are paying $2,250,000 back to the P&A investor. The P&A investor doesn't do this for free. When they give us an investment, they're like any investor. They want to make money. So they're charging us 12.5% on their money. So we need to figure out what are we left with. So all I'm doing right now is I'm taking what I'm left with, 11 million. I'm deducting what I'm having to pay back to my P&A investor, the money, the premium, and I'm left with 8 million and some change. Now Paramount says, I want to get a distribution fee. I'm charging you 25%. That's what I want. I'm going to charge you 25% of 11 million because that's what I'm left with as a studio. So when the exhibitor took 45%, Paramount basically, theoretically, their revenues would have been $11 million. So that's what they're charging us on. So they're charging us the fee of $2,750,000 as a distribution fee that we have to pay. So we are now left with $5,718,000 and some change for our US revenues. So when you look at this kind of situation, you control everything. You're basically the releasing entity, but you're using a studio to help you with the work, and you're paying the studio a fee to do this. But you are responsible for the P&A money. You have to pay the P&A investor back. So you have to pay all these things back. So all this is deducted from you. So we're listing all the people that are getting money from us here, and we're left with $5,718,000 for domestic. We're then adding our international revenues, and we're adding our branding now because we're still owed half of the branding. So our total revenue is 17 million and some change right now. And then we start paying people like we always do. We pay the collection agent 1% of this. The collection agent wanted a setup fee. I put $40,000 in there. By the way, usually it's never more than 5 to 10, but I'm being generous. So I gave him 40,000. So I'm adding them. I'm paying back the bank loan. I'm paying back the bank loan, including my interest, because I haven't paid the bank anything yet. They just gave me money. So I now have to pay them for the interest. So that's why I'm paying the gross bank loan back, which is somewhere down here. We're paying back the guilds, 850,000. That's what we were told needs to be done. We're paying the sales agent 16%, and we're also paying another 6% on the pre-sales now. Was it 6% on the pre-sales, or was it something else? Let me see where this is going. Yes, on the balance. So this is where we pay our sales agent. They only charge us 6%, and now we're paying this. Then the mezzanine lender gets paid back. The premium for the mezzanine lender gets paid back. The mezzanine lender also wanted a producer fee, which, by the way, is not uncommon that they ask for an executive producer fee. I have had to pay it sometimes even out of the budget. In this case, they agree to be paid in the recoupment, which is also possible. We're paying our equity back with the regular premium. And here is where we now pay the in-kind services. These were deferments. They weren't just handed to us. They were just simply deferred. So this is where we pay them, and they asked for a 10% premium. So we're paying 10% of what was deferred. And remember earlier, we deferred $440,000. So if we put all these expenses together, we get to 15 million and some change. So if I take my revenues and I deduct my expenses, I get to these net revenues. And here's where I'm paying everyone their profit participation. The mezzanine lender had 5%, the crowdfunder had 1%, the talent has 30%, the equity is 40%. And I am left with $479,000 for the producer. So this is usually as complex as it's going to get for you. So it usually doesn't get much more worse than this, just to calm you down. This is a very, complex. It's similar to the one that you just did. I'm just adding a few things, like we're deferring something when we're paying a premium for what we deferred. We haven't done that before. We haven't really gone into the details of the tier 1 and tier 2 stuff. So we're doing this. So I just want you to understand that this is what actually is going to happen in reality. This is how bad it can get. Do we have questions for this? No one has questions? You guys know everything?
Is this going to be our final?
Yes, this is going to be your final.
Wow.
Yeah, but we're going to do it together, Kathy, so no worries. I still want you to see this one time with me and to be able to ask me questions as to why I do what I do. So don't be shy. If something I said does not ring a bell, does not make sense for you, don't hold back. This is the time to ask me. That's why we're doing this.
What was the branding fee?
The branding. Thank you, Jim. So brand integration. Imagine you are having a conversation with Pepsi Cola and they love your project and say, we would really like to do something with you in the script where we can integrate a new Pepsi Cola zero cherry taste into your movie. We really think that the lead character is going to be someone that we want to see connected to our brand. First conversation to be had with the brand. The introduction to the brand and the conversation to be had with the producer to include the brand is usually done. This work is done by an advertising agency. You don't call up Pepsi Cola and say, hey, I have a movie, I want you in it. The advertising agency does that for you. There are agencies that are placement agencies that do exactly this. They do nothing else but get money for movies from brands. And they do a lot of the legwork. So they ask you to pay them a fee for their work. And that's the fee that you paid. It's the 25% of what you're getting. So when Pepsi Cola says, I'm giving you $650,000 and I'm giving you half when we start the movie and I give you half when the movie is done, the agency gets 25% of that. Did I answer the question?
Yep, perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? Marilyn, go.
Yeah, like in my movie, I wanted to have Starbucks. So, that's a favorite well-known drink and everything. And it's like, are they gonna pay me to put that in my movie, or is this just?
Yes. If they like your movie, and if you are going to work with an advertising agency, you're gonna have to contact someone who does this for a living, because you're not gonna call Starbucks. They're gonna see Marilyn who? So forget that. You're gonna talk to an advertising agency, and they're gonna talk to Starbucks to say, Marilyn has this amazing movie. She wants to include Starbucks. Here's the script. What do you think?
Okay.
And they're going to come back with, well, we think this and that. We'd like to change these or these scenes. We'd like to update this. Is that okay? And then we're going to pay Marilyn $500,000 for the inclusion of our Starbucks. That's
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Why is China and India such a small amount? Those are big territories.
I know. And people always say that. The problem is China and India are very big because there's a lot of people there, right? Big. For us as producers means nothing. unless I myself am in China and I'm a distributor, like I'm a studio that releases into theaters and I make money in China like that because I'm a Chinese distributor, where the money is, I don't make money. I, as a producer, have to look at China as a territory, and the Chinese are known not for paying much for their territory. They don't necessarily pay a big license fee, even though they make a lot of money there. They are known for a territory that pays very little to buy your movie, and it's usually the territory that I sell last. And here's why I sell them last, because they pirate my movie in like 5 seconds. So I don't usually sell them a movie. When the movie's finished, I sell them last. Pre-sales I can do because I don't have my movie, right? I can do that. But even then, I make sure that I deliver them last. So yes, the movie's finished, but I'm going to sell a lot of other territories first, and then I'm going to deliver to China because it's a pirate territory. So it's a very tricky territory for me as a producer and for the bank to work with. And the problem also is that the local studios and the local distributors, they don't necessarily share the goods with me. They make their money locally, and that's great, but I'm an outsider and I don't get to participate in that necessarily. So no one really has figured out, and I hope there is a way to figure this out at some point, how to crack China in a way that I can make some kind of that amazing money that they're making there. Now, India, on the other hand, is a territory that is just pays very little for their rights. Even though there's a lot of people living there, India is not a wealthy country, and they don't really pay a lot for the rights when they buy something. That's why they're low. Yeah, so China is it's a tricky thing. I think a lot of producers try to crack that nut by doing Chinese co-productions, and some were actually making headway, but it's a very unusual place to do business. I've not, me personally, I've not figured that one out. So I just sell China as a territory.
And also for China, in my post-production class, they were saying that, they have special deliverables and they have to recut movies and they have to, remove stuff because China has to approve it.
Correct. Thank you for mentioning that. I would have totally forgotten. China is a country that is subject to censorship. So they will look at your movie and they may, first of all, they may or may not buy it. In many cases, they decide not to buy it because it doesn't work for their territory and the censorship wouldn't allow it. The country has actually to approve the acquisition of this content, and they only approve a certain percentage of outside, not Chinese content that's on top of it. So it's very limited and it's very hard to sell to this territory. It's a very tricky one. Thank you, Kathy, for mentioning that. We've totally forgotten. Yeah. Anything else? Children?
Yeah, I was reading about the sanctions over in China in my class last year, and it's really hard to get a lot of American movies to be approved because of the violence and sexuality.
Yeah, I know the censorship is harsh. I don't know the actual rules of the censorship, unfortunately, and it's not, it's not something that we none of us can figure out. But I know it's a very difficult territory to get anything sold, and it's a dangerous territory to sell something early because they're known for pirating. So and that's another thing. The government might say, when we're not allowing this acquisition, but the pirate people say, screw that, we're going to make our DVDs anyway so people can see the movie. Happens all the time. So it's a tricky thing. It's not the territory I would, put so much weight on. And it's a territory that the banks don't put much weight on, as you can see.
Jeanette, have you ever been traveling and found a pirated version of your film?
Yes, I did. Seriously, somebody even sent me the poster with the Chinese signs on it. I think it was Experiment with Adrian Brody and Forrest Whitaker. Very violent. They love that stuff, I guess. Yes, I saw it, a Chinese, and I'm like, oh, forget. I was like, forget it. I never got, I didn't sell it. I know I didn't sell it to China, so I know that. So it made its way there as a pirated version. I don't know how it got there because I didn't sell it, but it got there. And someone showed me a picture with the, with the Chinese signs on the box. I have that somewhere. If I find it, I'll send it to you for funsies.
We had a client here that had one of their very low budget films pirated in India, and they dubbed it, they made new titles, they made subtitles, they like redid the whole thing for the pirate version.
I know. I mean, I didn't know that India is crazy like that too. I know it from China, but yes. So these are tricky territories, you know, and I don't know how they get their hands on it. Sometimes you don't even send it to the territories and they get their hands on it.
Whenever it's something like that happens, though, the copyright laws are just for the US, right? So that would have been like a derivative work if somebody took a movie that was completed and reworked it.
I don't know if the copyright is only for the US. I am not sure that's correct. I think
Well, all
yes,
copyright laws are territorial. You have to abide by the laws of the country that you're in, but that doesn't mean that you don't have rights in other countries.
yeah. So does it mean that if I have a copyright, if I'm secured with my copyright in the US and they put my experiment in China, do I have no recourse, Maritia?
It depends on the China law.
Interesting. So there you go. Even worse. Who knew? Thank you, lawyers. Good to have lawyers in the team here that educate us. Yeah,
We have to protect our income.
I know, but you know, I mean, I like the idea of co-producing with China. I'm actually working on a TV series as a co-production with China right now. And it's with a brand. It's in China. They have this Mutai liquor that's very known, and I think it's like the, you know, the tequila of China, if you want. They have versions of this liquor where the bottle is like $100,000 or $200,000. It's crazy. And this company, Mutai, actually approached us to do a co-production with them. And that's very interesting. So, and it came through an advertising agency, funny enough.
Wait, speaking on behalf of Mexico, China copied tequila?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying their version of tequila. No one can copy tequila. Are you crazy? Tequila.
That well, what you were talking about is like the Indian version of your film.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think what they do, I don't think they copied tequila. I think they actually developed a liquor in the little town of Mutai. That's actually a town. And this liquor is very known in the Asian regions. Maybe it's just China, but I think it's even beyond. So I looked it up just for funsies because I've never heard of it. And I'm finding out that the bottles are, I mean, they have cheaper bottles, like they have with tequila, but then they have the bottle that's like $250,000.
Wow.
Auction. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's insane. So I needed to do my research on Mutai liquor and found out that this is a very exclusive liquor. So when they called us and says, we want to do a TV series around this stuff, so it's a documentary series. I'm like, okay. So the one thing I did, of course, when I talked to the advertising agency that was representing Mutai is, okay, we'll make a deal where we'll make sure that we get paid before we put our foot into China. I'm not getting on any plane before I get paid. So that's the thing. You have to just be careful when you do deals with people that you don't have done deals with, and it's far and it's a lot of, you know, question marks. But it is.
Did you try the liquor?
Have I tried the liquor? I've tried the liquor. I'm not sure about that.
Is it worth it?
Honestly, I'm like with Joseph on that one. It tastes, you know what? Maybe I had the cheap version, but I did go to a liquor store and actually had it. I just wanted to just see.
It should cure cancer for that money.
Yeah, I know it should, right? Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah. You know, I have one more thing to say about the China thing.
Yeah.
I had these beautiful red succulent flowers, and they were in front of my yard. When the sun hit them, they were like bright red. And I kept noticing people coming up there taking them. Finally, they were all gone one day. And I went to the store and they said that China had a connection over here in America where they were paying people to steal the succulents.
What?
Yeah, yeah. And I was so heartbroken. It was like lit up that whole side of my my beautiful island that I made. And I have the palm trees, and the tree, when the sun hit it, it would just fire hot red. And they said China was paying the agricultural people to to come over and take it from over here in America because they didn't have any over there.
Oh, I see. So they stole the that's fun. Well,
I was so sad.
All you need for a succulent farm is just one succulent. I mean, they just propagate.
Why do they?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
knows? Who knows? Anyway, So quickly, before I let you guys go, some of you are doing projects, right? The group projects. And can the group leader email me to let me know if you want to pitch them next week? So I'm going to have you guys, you could pitch however you want to pitch. You can pitch as a group, you can pitch on your one person pitch, you can pitch whatever you want to pitch, right? Not next week, in 2 weeks. But I'm going to allow a certain time frame, and depending on how many of you want to pitch, I'm going to dissect the time frame. So I'd like to know if you guys can email me who is going to pitch their project next in 2 weeks, so that I can make time for that and kind of organize our session for next week. Would that be okay?
Yes.
And
Do you have any other pre-recorded ones that could be shown, just so we have an idea of what you expect?
I think I do, but the problem is that these pre-recorded ones also have the final on them, and there are some questions in the final that I'm going to use. So maybe what I'll do for the next session is I'm going to separate those recordings. Good question. But the idea is, Kathy, just pitch. Pitch the way you would pitch, because this is for you to learn what was done well and what can be improved on. So there's no reason to be shy about this. There's no one's going to watch, and no one not going to. These recordings don't go anywhere. They're just staying within our group because they're all unlisted recordings. So this is never going to leave my platform. So not to worry about that. So don't get worried about, do I do it right or do
Well, only one person's going to pitch from each group, right? So not everybody's going to play a part in that. But
here's how they've done this. I have had groups where they have people in the group pitch a certain section. So they have one group to pitch the creative, one person pitch the storyline, the other one talk about the characters, the next one talk about marketing, the next one talk about the finance plan. So some people slice it up. And then we had presentations where one person did it all, and the group just decided we want this person to present. So you can slice up the goodies, or you can have one person present. Either way is perfectly fine. So whatever your group decides they want to do.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to let you know I did buy your husband's book, and I've been reading it, and it's really good. It's giving a lot of good insight, and I'm just laughing all the way through it. So I'm looking forward to what he has to say.
Yeah, he is great. He has all the war stories about all the stuff that he pitched and that he sold. And this is an Emmy-winning producer and writer director. The guys, he has so much experience with these crazy networks in the US. So I really want him to. He's producing the show that we do right now with Discovery. So it is fun. It's fun to kind of hear. Look at Marilyn, you have it too. You have it too?
Yes, I looked at it. It was really, really funny. I really enjoyed it.
Really? It is funny, right? Yeah, when I read it the first time.
I haven't read it yet.
I was laughing out loud when I read it the first time. It was hilarious. I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea my husband has such a great sense of humor. And then he's married to some stupid German chick with no sense of humor. There's that.
I bought it because Rosa recommended it, and
really?
I finished it in 2 evenings, but I'm still not done yet with your book.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, mine is not as funny. Sorry about that. Yeah, I know. Well, my book is really for you to keep and to look into once you're done with it. Because here's the thing. We're doing this over a course of 3 months. And as you can tell, it's a lot of information. It's information that I have gathered over 25 years of working in this industry. And even I am learning every day something new. So it is not something that you can digest as quickly. I want you to have the tools to know what you need to do, and to also feel a sense of, holy shit, am I going to get this done? So that you be a little challenged. But I want you to feel safe. So that's why I'm doing the final together with you. And I want you to be able to ask me all the questions that come up where you still are not clear. I don't want you to be shy. This is a very complex subject matter. And because it is so complex, I was asked by your early colleagues when I started doing this for UCLA, we want something to take away. We don't want to print out the freaking course, for crying out loud. Can we, what can you do? I said, okay, fine, I'll write a freaking book then. So I wrote the first book, and then I had the next group give me feedback on the book. So this book was actually written with UCLA students' feedback. So I had the second edition, I had all the feedback from the students. including spellies. I think there's still some spellies in there. I mean, it's not for, I'm not selling this like, you know, a commercial book. I'm usually just using it for UCLA. I did a seminar on Stage 32 the other day, and I brought it up there too, and some people bought it, but it's not, you know, it's not like Jim's book. Jim's book is actually commercial and fun. My book is for you to keep and to hold and to be reminded and to just look up when you need to do something and when you work on something. So, you know, it's obviously, if there is an updated version, I'm you know, at some point I'm going to have to deal with pandemic and all this nonsense. This was written before the pandemic. I think I'm going to make a version where I'm going to add this stuff, but I want to have a little more experience what the pandemic actually does to us before I add that. So when I add that chapter, I hope you guys stay in touch with me. I'm going to send it to you so you have it. I'm going to let you know. So go on email me and make sure you stay in touch so that I can say, here's a new chapter. But I want to see how it plays out. It's too early for me to really see how it plays out. I can see some things like people that I work with in the network stations are gone, or people at the studios are gone. They're all gone. And now they have 12-year-olds on that chair and they don't even know what their last name is. So we're dealing with that. But other than that, you know, I'm still figuring out how does this affect us, other than the delays we're all dealing with, you know, on every level, on the financial level with investors and on the level that is the decision-making level with these networks and streamers. They all take a long time to make a decision on anything. I'm like losing my hair over this. So that's the first response I have to the pandemic, that things are really slow. So that's that. And investors are really not ready to put up money right now. So there is that too, but they're coming back because they're realizing, you know, we can't sit around do nothing forever, and content is in demand. And so there is now, again, becoming interest in this whole thing. So once I see this play out a little more, I'm going to write a chapter on it, and then I'll send it to you. Digressing. But point is, if you guys can, you know, let me know who wants to pitch. Jim is going to be there. He's going to give his feedback. I'm glad you guys got this book and get a sense of who he is. You're going to have fun meeting him in person. I think some of you already took his course anyway. He's teaching at UCLA too. And then we'll give you some feedback. So it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it's great if it's not perfect, because we can, with the feedback, we can tell you a few things that are good for everyone to know when it's not. I mean, if I get great pitches that I don't have to say anything about, that's going to be really boring. So don't do that. Seriously, don't do that. Give me stuff to give you feedback on so we can all learn from that. And then as you go through the last chapters and as you go through everything that you've learned and study for the final, write down any question you're still not sure of. It just didn't stick, didn't go through your head, still doesn't make sense. I want to know what that is so that I can answer those questions in our final session. Okay? Okay, can we do weekend now or what? Are we done? Okay. I see some of you later for office hours. So if you after this are so confused you need an office hour, you can just email me. I'm going to be doing it until 3 today. So feel free, and some slots are already taken. Just email me. I'll tell you what's still available, or text me or something, or not everyone has my number. So just email me. It's probably easier. And then I'll plug you in. Good. No more questions, or are we still having questions?
Thank you.
Bye, you guys.
Happy Memorial
Thank
Day,
you.
everyone.
Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day.
Have a great weekend, you guys. Relax a little.
Yay.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.